Chapter 24:11. While Su Fong and the Qilin were fighting, two figures stood in the sky above the sky beacon god realm. Their gazes pierced through the void as they watched the battle unfold. The person in the lead was Zhong Yinji. A middle-aged man secretly communicated with Zhong Yinji through his nascent soul. If that big goblin Yuanli takes all the big goblins in the Demon Mountain as his subordinates, his strength will undoubtedly skyrocket. I'm afraid that will be detrimental to Master's plan. Zhong Yinji snorted inexplicably and replied through his nascent soul, that big goblin Yuanli is indeed extraordinary. He should be able to suppress the Qilin, but he will also have to pay a heavy price. This will be beneficial to Master. Once he comes out of the sky screen, The middle-aged man was startled, then smiled apologetically. My lord is wise. Master not only wants to take back the evil god flag this time, but also Mo Tiangong and Mo Tiangong's method of refining nether sand. If Yuanli is injured in this battle, he won't be able to escape the trap set by the Tao Defiance in the sky screen. While the two were communicating, an earth-shattering roar filled with evil came from the Qilin's world of demonic energy. Then, the water world formed by the demonic energy shattered layer by layer. Finally, a large area collapsed. A giant ghost head appeared and was madly devouring the water world. The evil god flag? Zhong Yinji's expression changed instantly. Soon after, he gritted his teeth. Not only can Yuanli control the evil god flags, but he can also merge the 9 evil god flags into one. No one below the Emperor realm is his match. That divine beast Qilin can't escape its fate of being suppressed. Damn it! I must report this to Master. The middle-aged man smiled and transmitted his voice. My lord, you worry too much. If Yuanli encounters Master, it will be fine if he doesn't use the evil god flag. If he uses it against Master, he will only die faster. My lord, don't forget that Master is the original owner of the evil god flag. I almost forgot that. However, we still can't be careless. This demon Yuanli is indeed very strange. Even the vast profound ice can't shackle him. We have to figure out his strength and then report to Master so that we can make preparations to deal with him in advance. Only then can we be absolutely safe. My lord is wise. The Qilin's demonic energy world was devoured and easily destroyed by Su Fong's evil god flag. It roared in exasperation. Yuanli, as a big goblin, how can you use a weapon that can resurrect a powerhouse against me? How can I accept this? Then this sovereign will beat you until you're convinced. Su Fong revealed a domineering aura as he retrieved the evil god flag. Then, his aura suddenly erupted as he pounced towards the Qilin. Boom! The combination of the fist of destruction and the demonic qi created a terrifying destructive force that forced the divine beast Qilin to retreat. Unable to maintain its human form, it reverted back to its original form. In its original form, the big goblin was not as agile as its human form. However, it could unleash the full power of its special ability. The Qilin divine beast, which was 1,000 feet tall, did not have the evil demonic aura of the other big goblin. Instead, it stood on auspicious clouds and exuded an auspicious aura. It had transformed into an auspicious beast. Auspicious aura was also a kind of providence of the heavenly Tao. The Qilin mythical beast's innate ability was not only the ability to control the power of water, but it also had another innate ability that other mythical beasts did not have, and that was the ability to control fate. The divine beast Qilin roared at the sky. Then, it opened its mouth and sucked in Su Fong. A divine power that could devour all the providence of the heavenly Tao suddenly erupted. Su Fong was shocked. This divine beast Qilin is quite interesting. It can actually devour providence. It's similar to the purple cloud Dharma spirit's ability. If not for the purple cloud Dharma spirit, I would be in big trouble this time. Under the divine beast Qilin's devouring power, the big goblin watching the battle from afar felt invisible providence suddenly flow away. Although it was not much, they could still sense that the repulsive force of nature against them had increased. Losing Providence would not only lead to bad luck, but they would also be rejected by the heavenly Tao, creating a cultivation bottleneck that would be difficult to break through. Big goblins were different from cultivators. They did not have any bottlenecks or shackles in their cultivation. However, the result of being rejected by the heavenly Tao was that the heavenly tribulation would become even more terrifying when they underwent tribulation, and it was rather fatal. Every single one of the big goblin on the Demon Mountain was formidable. There was no lack of divine beasts and mutated ferocious beasts. They were wild, arrogant, and fearless. However, not a single big goblin was unafraid of the heavenly tribulation. They naturally knew how terrifying it was for them to lose Providence, and it terrified all the big goblin to the point of flying even further away for fear of being affected. Zhong Yinji, who was watching from afar, couldn't help but chuckle when he saw this scene. This divine beast Qilin really is extraordinary. If it's taken as a slave, it can bring providence to its master. Unfortunately, it's useless to us Tao defiant. The middle-aged man by his side sent a voice transmission. Yuan Li is unlucky to have encountered such a formidable divine beast Qilin and actually tried to suppress it. His providence was devoured by the divine beast Qilin. He can only wait for his misfortune to descend to the ninth hell. Su Fang felt the violet Qi Dharma spirit within his body tremble, and it almost left his body. The violet Qi space deep within his body shook violently as well. He hurriedly urged the violet Qi Dharma spirit to stabilize it. The divine beast Qilin couldn't help but be surprised when it saw Su Fang was unharmed. After that, it roared 3 times in succession at Su Fang, and the might of devouring providence stacked on top of each other. It was more than 10 times stronger than before. Unexpectedly, Su Fang sneered as he stared at the divine beast Qilin, and it was like he was watching a clown perform. Now, it was the divine beast Qilin's turn to be shocked. How is this possible? How is it possible that I can't shake your providence? Are you done? If you are, then it's my turn. Su Fang sneered. His body swayed, and he flew like lightning, instantly arriving in front of the divine beast Qilin. In the original state, the destructive power of the Fist of Destruction swept over. The divine beast Qilin transformed into its original state and became very slow. The divine armed spirit monkey was best at speed, and it couldn't dodge in a flash. Su Fang's fist that could shatter heaven and earth landed on the big goblin's body. Boom! The divine beast Qilin's demonic aura defense was instantly shattered, and the power of the Fist of Destruction landed on its body. The black scales on its body fell off layer by layer, and blood spurted out. Its body rolled over and over, and it screamed in pain. Boom! 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 Su Fang pressed down on it forcefully and domineeringly. From afar, it looked like an ant was crushing a mountain. The scene was extremely strange. The spectating great demons were all trembling with fear. Even Wang Tian, who was the strongest among them, Li, Xing Kai Qian, Si, Long, the big goblin that had already decided to submit to Su Fang, rejoiced in their hearts. On the other hand, those who refused to submit were the complete opposite. They were all panicking. Every time Su Fang punched the divine beast Qilin, it was like punching their bodies, causing them to tremble violently. Spare my life, master, spare my life. I submit. I will never dare to disobey master again. The divine beast Qilin finally couldn't take it anymore and begged for mercy. If it didn't beg for mercy, it would be beaten to death by Su Fang. QL11 This was the result of Su Fang being merciful and not using his full strength. He had fused with the power of the big goblin and the experts of the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda. He could kill the divine beast Qilin with brute force alone. Moreover, he had also used the powerful Fist of Destruction. The divine beast Qilin was also unlucky. Not only did Su Fang have the evil god flag, but he also had the purple cloud Dharma spirit. The divine ability of the divine beast Qilin couldn't threaten Su Fang, and Su Fang's godly strength was astonishing. That was why it was so easily suppressed by Su Fang. Of course, if Su Fang exposed his identity, he had too many ways to easily suppress the divine beast Qilin. Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, why aren't you obediently entering this sovereign's demonic artifact? Su Fang released a gust of demonic aura and sucked the divine beast Qilin into his body. Then, he sucked the divine beast Qilin into the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda and shackled it temporarily. He would deal with it once he had subdued all the other big goblin. Master is mighty. Master is invincible. Wang Tian? But he Ho-ho? Ho-ho? Yeah? Squeeze? Ho-ho? Anhui? Ho-ho? Rolling down the thumb? Ho-ho? Ochai? Ho-ho? However, there were still many big goblin who were hesitating. Su Fang waved his hand and a Xian Guang appeared. Countless elixirs, spiritual items, and other resources floated in the air. There were also many divine artifacts and demon artifacts. They formed a long river and emitted a shocking amount of spiritual energy. Then, he said in a cold voice filled with killing intent, "Submit to me and you will be able to enjoy endless resources. In the past, you couldn't even exchange your lives for these resources. Those who refuse to submit to me and defy Emperor Zhao's decree shall die. I am willing to follow Master." Submit? Didn't we come to the Sky Beacon God world for the resources? Since Master is willing to provide us with so many resources, what is there to hesitate about? Greetings, Master. At this moment, all the big goblin knelt down and bowed their heads to Su Fang. All of you, return to the Demon Mountain. Su Fang kept all the resources floating in front of him. He looked at Zhong Yinji in the distance with a murderous gaze and then flew back to the Sky Beacon God world. I didn't expect this big goblin, Yuan Li, to be so powerful and intelligent. First, he threatened us with force and then tempted us with resources. A mere big goblin actually has the demeanor of an overlord. Now that he has subdued 100,000 big goblins, his overall strength has increased tremendously. Report this to Master as soon as possible. We have to change our plans against Yuan Li. Zhong Yinji snorted and released a divine light that enveloped the middle-aged man. Then, the two of them broke through the sky and flew away. Once Su Fang returned to the Demon Mountain, he kept all the big goblin in the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. After the big goblin released their primordial spirits, Su Fang used the power of the Chaos Essence Sage as the source and the power of the Yin-Yang world to seal their primordial spirits and bodies. With this, Su Fang immediately gained 100,000 powerful big goblin subordinate. Among them Wang Tian, Empty Wolf, Bandit Sigma Luan Ying Scabbard, Ding the newly subdued big goblin were all shocked when they found out about Su Fang's true identity. Many big goblin felt like they had been deceived. However, they were sealed by the Su Fang and could not do anything in the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. Chapter 24:12. About 3 years. Master. Heavens? It's a guise. Mechanical masquerade? Zhang? Su Fang took all the big goblin in the Demon Mountain into the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, leaving only Wang Tian. To shed one's self? Calamity depends on the thumb of a oyster? You Xingui? Xian? Roll over? You want to bait the craftsman? Prayer chamber? Descending thumb? For some reason, they suddenly contacted Su Fang. What is it? Su Fang was in the middle of fusing with the infinity wheel. Bull. Provoking Xing Yuhuang? Heavens? How could the dam collapse? Yina died, Zhang Jun? Wan Qiaoqin? Did a demon say that she was making trouble? Guanadine? Phantom charms. Xian Tianming? Su Fang raised an eyebrow. Who is his master? What business do you have with me? He said that his master and master's master are old friends. Su Fang looked up to the sky. What? Plagues in the garden, playing with skeletons, cutting off coarse demons, saying that they are causing trouble, saying that they are indulging in evil spirits? A cow's bite? Ishi? Ruining? Word picker? Charming? Yiling Chun? Zizaphilishian Tianming's master was clearly Huang Lingyao. In the lifeless wasteland, Su Fang, who used the fiendish transformation technique to transform into a big goblin, Yuan Li, was rescued by Huang Lingyao. At that time, he claimed to be Su Fang's big goblin. Heavens? Seductive and seductive? Soul? Do you want to play tricks on me? Smoothing book for cleaning, rolling and stirring Huang Lingyao in Su Fang's mind. He suddenly thought of the grudges between Huang Lingyao and could not help but shake his head and smile. Unexpectedly, Huang Lingyao actually had such a heaven-defying fortune, obtaining the inheritance of Emperor Ming Yu and establishing the Xianming divine religion. At this time, it was also a powerful force in the dark world. Su Fang had planned to look for Huang Lingyao after entering the battlefield of the Two Realms River again. He did not expect that she would send someone to look for him. About half an hour later, Su Fang sensed a cultivator arrive in front of the Immortal's cave. This humble one is Xian Tianming. Greetings, great elder Yuan Li. This was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. His cultivation base was only at the second heavenly stage of the Tao integration stage, and for some reason, he had become Huang Lingyao's subordinate and was hiding in the sky beacon god realm. Come in. Su Fang opened the seal of the cave, allowing Xian Tianming to enter the cave. His sharp gaze swept over Xian Tianming, and he said coldly, "Your master, why are you looking for this venerable one?" Xian Tianming said respectfully, "Reporting to Great Elder Yuan Li, the sect master heard that you are about to head to the 9 underworlds, thus he wants to work with Great Elder and enter the 9 underworlds together." How did your sect master know that this venerable one is going to the 9 underworlds? Su Fang's heart jumped. He did not expect Huang Lingyao to be so resourceful. She actually knew that he was going to the 9 underworlds. Heading to the 9 underworlds was an extremely secretive matter. Huang Lingyao actually found out about it so quickly. Could it be that there were spies from Xianming divine religion among the 10 leaders of the human race's discussion hall other than the Tao Defiance? A hint of pride flashed in Xian Tianming's eyes, and he said, "My sect master is extremely powerful. Finding out about this is not difficult." Impudent! How did Xianming divine religion find out about this? Tell this venerable one the truth. A peerless divine aura enveloped Xian Tianming. A ruthless and evil demonic aura suppressed him, forcing him to kneel on the ground. He could be crushed to pieces at any time. "Great Elder Yuan Li, please calm down," Xian Tianming said with a trembling voice. Xianming divine religion is also a member of the Tao Defiance Alliance. Lord Sect Master found out about this from the higher-ups of the Tao Defiance Alliance. "Great Elder, please spare me." So it was like that. Only then did Su Fang let out a sigh of relief and retracted his aura. It was as though Xian Tianming had escaped from the brink of death, and he immediately collapsed on the ground. Calming his breathing, Xian Tianming continued to speak while stammering. "In the Tao Defiance Alliance, regardless of whether it is the Tao Defiance or the demons, they all want to kill you at all costs. Lord Sect Master knows about this. Thus she had this lowly one inform Great Elder and have Great Elder prepare in advance." Su Fang spoke up. "What is she going to the 9 underworlds for?" Lord Sect Master is a descendant of the dark underworld divine race. The 9 underworlds is the birthplace of the dark underworld divine race. There are many treasures and spiritual items that contain the essence of Een inside. Thus, she wants to enter to search for treasures. However, the 9 underworlds is extremely dangerous. Even with Lord Sect Master's strength, she will not be able to return after entering. Thus, she proposed to work together with Lord. With Lord's strength, if we work together and enter the 9 underworlds, we will definitely be able to return with great reward. Xian Tianming spoke in one breath, fearing that he would incur Su Fang's anger. Su Fang said coldly. Why should this venerable one work together with him? Xian Tianming respectfully took out a jade slip and used a Xian Guang to carry it toward Su Fang. My sect master has entered the 9 underworlds many times to search for treasures. Thus, her understanding of the 9 underworlds far surpasses that of any other faction. Su Fang did not receive the jade slip and sneered. This venerable one has information related to the 9 underworlds from the imperial people. Why do I need your sect masters? Xian Tianming smiled apologetically and said, It's fortunate that this lowly one came to find Great Elder. Otherwise, Great Elder would definitely suffer a great loss after entering the 9 underworlds. You might even die inside. Why? The information in Great Elder's hands was collected before the upheaval of the world. After the upheaval of the world, especially the chaos of the heavenly Tao, it caused the interior of the former 9 underworlds to change completely. If we entered based on the information from before, wouldn't we be sending ourselves to death? Su Fang was extremely moved and reached out to grab the jade slip. Channeling his magic power into the jade slip quickly melted in his hand. Some information related to the legendary 9 underworlds quickly entered Su Fang's mind. Reading it carefully, Su Fang furrowed his brow. Thinking for a while, Su Fang said indifferently, Go back and tell your sect master that this venerable one agrees to work together with her. This lowly one thanks Great Elder on behalf of the sect master. Xian Tianming said happily. Then he took out a talisman and handed it to Su Fang. When Lord passes through the sky screen, you can use the talisman to contact the sect master. This venerable one understands. Go. Su Fang waved his hand and released a wave of demonic aura, sweeping Xian Tianming out of the cave and out of the demon mountain. Then his expression became serious and he muttered to himself, The current 9 underworlds is 10 times more dangerous than I imagined. Fortunately, I have Huang Lingyao's information. Otherwise, if I directly brought Senior Mo Tiangong into the 9 underworlds, not only would I not be able to find the legendary Nether River, I would most likely die inside. Long before the discussion hall decided to have Su Fang protect Mo Tiangong into the 9 underworlds to search for nether sand, Xiao Wanting sent someone to deliver information related to the 9 underworlds to Su Fang. This information all came from the records of the imperial people and the ancient divine races. For the majority of the divine races, the 9 underworlds was a legend. But for the imperial people and the ancient divine races, it was not much of a secret. The 9 underworlds was located in the deepest space-time plane of the universe. It was the place of reincarnation after a life form died. The 9 underworlds should actually be the 10 underworlds. Later on, the Supreme Venerable suppressed the 9 underworlds inside the suppressing prison code. The essence of the 9 underworlds was extracted, causing the cycle of life and death to be broken. The 9 underworlds fell into chaos. Su Fang analyzed that this was one of the reasons why the resurrected experts were wreaking havoc. QL11 There was no natural spiritual energy in the 9 underworld. Instead, it was filled with the aura of death, which was the power of the underworld. When a life form entered it, its aura of life would be devoured and its soul would fall into the cycle of reincarnation. After the cycle of life and death was broken, the 9 underworlds fell into complete chaos. There were all kinds of ghosts and monsters that could not break out of the cycle of reincarnation. It was said that there were even monsters that had reached the level of a venerable sovereign. Therefore, the 9 underworlds was a forbidden land for all life forms. Apart from the overgod experts who had cultivated their own world, all life forms below the overgod level, be it divine race, big goblin or devil race, would die without a doubt. Moreover, even overgod experts would be shackled when they entered. It was hard to say whether they would survive. The heavenly river was polluted. Although it was stopped by the 9 underworlds, it still caused the universe to fall into chaos. It was still slowly recovering. As a result, the 9 underworlds became even more chaotic. Apart from the monsters of the underworld, there were all kinds of natural dangers that caused space-time disorder. It became 10 times more dangerous than before. This trip to the 9 underworlds is much more dangerous than I expected. However, the more dangerous it is, the more useful it is for me to hone myself. I might be able to find an opportunity to break through to the over-god level in the 9 underworlds. Thinking of this, Su Fang's heart surged with a strong desire to fight. His eyes burned brightly. In the blink of an eye, another 7 years passed. Yuan Li, come to the meeting hall quickly. On this day, Xiao Wanting sent his primordial spirit over. Su Fang walked out of his cave abode and looked up at the sky. About 800? Staff? Screen? Lang? School? Sword? The North family's Ing Luo Tuan? He passed through layers of barriers and arrived at the meeting hall. There were already more than 20 figures waiting in the square in front of the hall. Xiao Wanting, Emperor Guanghan, and Emperor Haoyuan, the 10 elders of the human clan's meeting hall, and Mo Tiangong were all there. There were also some people that Su Fang did not expect. There were 3 of Mo Tiangong's junior disciples by his side. 3 divine lords were also among them. There were also a few people that Su Fang was familiar with. Chu Bingyan, Qian Gang, and Qi Mian, one of the top 10 geniuses of Yuan Tiangong. Su Fang was very unfamiliar with the other 3 young men. One of them was a young man in white. Although his appearance was ordinary, and he looked like he was in his early 20s, he had a calmness that was unprecedented for his age, as well as an aura that seemed to dominate the world. Su Fang sensed that this person's aura was of the same origin as Di Yuan's. He was clearly a peerless powerhouse from the imperial people. However, he did not have Di Yuan's lofty and domineering aura, nor did he have Di Yuan's seemingly aloof, but actually frivolous temperament. He only had a profound aura that was as deep as the sky and as steady as the earth. The other young man had a pale face and a thin figure. He gave off the feeling that a gust of wind could blow him away without a trace. However, this person's gaze was extremely sharp. When Su Fang's gaze met his, he immediately felt a piercing pain in his eyes, as if he had been shot by a sharp arrow. Su Fang's brows were tightly knitted. An expert from the Yi clan. There was another young man with a dignified appearance and an extraordinary cultivation base. He had reached the level of a middle-rank lord. He always had a smile on his face, giving off a refreshing feeling. Chapter 24:13. Su Fang landed on the square and asked Xiao Wanting in dissatisfaction, "Emperor Xiao, what is the meaning of this?" Xiao Wanting didn't mind Su Fang's tone. He stroked his white beard and said, "This trip to the 9 serenities is of great importance. It can even be said that it concerns the rise and fall of the human race. Therefore, we have to be very careful. Besides you, there are several other experts protecting Master Mo and his disciple." Su Fang sneered in his heart. As expected, the higher-ups of the Yuan Tiangong and the Sky Beacon God World were worried about leaving such an important matter to him, the big goblin. "Yuan Li, let me introduce you." Xiao Wanting pointed at the white-robed youth and said, "Dixuan. I'm sure the great elder of Yuan Li has heard of him." Dixuan? Su Fang was shocked. Dixuan, the #1 peerless genius of the previous generation of the imperial people and the future leader of the imperial people. Compared to Dixuan, Dixuan was much inferior. In the Chaos Sea of the Yuan Tiangong, Dixuan's record was still maintained and no one could surpass it. It was just that Dixuan's cultivation time exceeded 10 million years and didn't meet the requirements to enter the Celestial Worthy Mountain. Otherwise, the one who entered the Celestial Worthy Mountain would not be Dixuan but Dixuan. Moreover, it was very likely that the result would be different. Dixuan of the Imperial People greets the great elder of Yuan Li. Dixuan cupped his fists at Su Fang without a trace of arrogance. Su Fang cupped his fists in return. At the same time, Su Fang placed Dixuan in the list of important people in his heart. QL11. This person was much more powerful than Dixuan in terms of strength and temperament. He must be careful in this trip to the 9 Serenities. Su Fang was also very puzzled. What is the intention of the imperial people to let such an unparalleled genius enter the 9th underworld? The imperial people have just lost Dixuan. Aren't they afraid that Dixuan will also die in the 9 Serenities? Xiao Wanting continued, these 3 are all Yuan Tiangong geniuses, Qi Mian, Chu Bingyan, and Qian Gang. You haven't seen the other 2, but you should know Qian Gang. The 3 geniuses bowed to Su Fang. Why did the 3 of them come to the 9th underworld to join in the fun? Su Fang raised his eyebrows. The 3 of them had not reached the level of overgods yet. Perhaps they had the strength to fight supreme overgods, but they were still a little lacking if they wanted to enter the abyss. He noticed that Qian Gang was full of gratitude towards him. Chu Bingyan's eyes were also filled with respect for the strong, and Qi Mian's eyes were filled with contempt. Expert of the E-Clan, Eli. Expert ranked 12th on the merit list by Ziho. The sickly and skinny youth was none other than Eli of the E-Clan. As for the extremely amiable youth, he was an elder of the Sealing Heaven God realm, by Ziho. Xiao Wanting said, there are 7 of you in total. Protect Master Mo and his 3 disciples as they enter the 9th underworld to collect the nether sand. You will have a greater chance of success. A greater chance of success? Su Fang's eyes swept across the crowd, and then he snorted disdainfully. They are only going to die if they enter the 9th underworld. Emperor Xiao, are you sure you want to do this? What Su Fang said was the truth. Although saying this would offend everyone, it was better than watching them throw their lives away. Although these people were all extraordinary, except for Dixuan, there were not many who could protect themselves in the 9th underworld, let alone Mo Tiangong. Su Fang could ignore the life and death of the others, but Mo Tiangong, the 3rd God realm, and the 3rd God realm? If something happened to the divine monarch, Chu Bingyan, and Qian Gang, he would have to save them. It would be equivalent to adding a few more burdens. Dixuan smiled faintly and did not say anything. The others did not look happy. Eli said coldly, you can enter the 9th underworld, but we are all going to die. What an arrogant demon! Qi Mian sneered disdainfully, not taking Su Fang's words seriously. Chu Bingyan and Qian Gang's faces were filled with unwillingness, but Bai Ziho quickly recovered his smiling face. Xiao Wanting said in a low voice, I have my reasons for making such arrangements. You only need to obey. Su Fang did not say anything else. Since Xiao Wanting was determined to send these geniuses to their deaths, why should he interfere? Xiao Wanting said, Yuan Li, you only have one duty, and that is to protect Master Mo and his disciples. Help them collect the nether sand and then safely return to the Sky Beacon God realm. As for the other matters, you don't need to worry. After thinking for a while, Su Fang asked, a dragon without a leader will not do. Who will be the leader this time? Xiao Wanting said majestically, for this trip to the 9th underworld, Dixuan will be the leader. You must protect Master Mo and his disciples at all costs and collect enough nether sand. Dixuan will be the leader? Su Fang finally understood why the imperial people wanted Dixuan to be the leader. The imperial people obviously wanted to take the credit for this great contribution to the imperial people. They wanted to gild the future head of the imperial people with gold and win great prestige for the imperial people at the same time. As for the others, they all had their own objectives for entering the 9th underworld. Su Fang. The voice of the supreme existence of the imperial people sounded in Su Fang's mind. Your mission this time is not only to protect Mo Tiangong, but also to lure and kill the heavenly flame. I've already told Dixuan to cooperate with you as much as possible. With him in the light and you in the dark, your chances of success are very high. Yes. I have to remind you that Dixuan is not Diuan. I don't want Dixuan to die mysteriously in the ninth underworld like Diuan. The voice of the supreme existence of the imperial people was obviously threatening. Obviously, he had already determined that Su Fang was responsible for Diuan's death. Su Fang replied, "As long as Dixuan doesn't do anything stupid against me, why would I target him? Dixuan knows what he's doing. You're on your own." Xiao Wanting gave a few more words of advice. Then, Dixuan led the others and quickly left the meeting hall. Looking at the backs of the people who were about to disappear, Zhong Yining was very proud. Before you can find the space-time plane node to enter the ninth underworld, what awaits you will be Master's inescapable trap. You will all die. The group arrived at the Sky Curtain. They passed through the Sky Curtain and entered the Two Realms River. Then, they passed through the layers of chaotic airflow and flew toward the other half of the myriad realms. Because the River of Two Realms was filled with shackles and space-time turbulence, they couldn't teleport with the Heaven Dao, and they couldn't even utilize their magic treasures with their full strength. They could only fly obediently. Mo Tiangong and his 3 disciples had been taken into the space within Dixuan's magic treasure. The others followed closely behind Dixuan and flew carefully. They had to deal with the turbulence in the surroundings while being on guard against the Dao defiance that might appear at any moment. Around 50 years later, Dixuan led the others to finally break free from the shackles of the River of Two Realms. They charged out of the area of space-time turbulence and arrived in space. Even though they'd encountered many Dao defiants and experts of the devil race all along the way, they'd all been killed without exception. So, they hadn't experienced any true danger. Dixuan swept them with his divine light, and then he smiled and said, "Since we've passed through the River of Two Realms so smoothly, it's obvious that our journey to the ninth underworld will definitely be smooth. We're already in the world of the Dao Defiant Alliance, so it's inadvisable for us to stay here for long. We should leave as soon as possible." After that, he withdrew a magic treasure. It was a magic treasure that looked like a ruler. It was dark and gloomy, and there were numerous horizontal lines on its surface that seemed like the scales of a ruler. It didn't look very conspicuous, but it emanated a shocking aura of creation and a type of ethereal spatial divine might. Everyone's eyes lit up as they gazed at the magic treasure. The aura of the ruler caused the violet chi law spirit origin spirit within Su Fang's violet chi space to tremble. A Z transmitted her thoughts to Su Fang. "Master, this magic treasure is a creation artifact." A creation artifact? As expected of a peerless figure from the imperial people. He's using a creation artifact as soon as he makes a move. However, a Z feels that this creation artifact is clearly inferior to Master's universe cart. Unfortunately, the universe cart has only just begun to fuse, and it's still unable to utilize much of its might. Sensing everyone's gazes, Dixuan casually smiled. "This is my clan's creation artifact, called the Heaven Measuring Longitude Ruler. After activating it, it can instantly travel through the space-time plane and arrive at the node. It can save us a lot of trouble. This time, for the 9 Serenities mission, I specifically borrowed it from one of the clan's grand elders." Bai Ziho smiled and complimented, as expected of the supreme imperial people. "This one admires you. It's just a magic treasure. No matter how extraordinary it is, it's just an external object." Dixuan didn't show the slightest hint of pride. Then, he continued, "Next, I will activate the Heaven Measuring Longitude Ruler and bring everyone to the space-time node that leads to the 9 Serenities. Everyone, please don't resist the divine might of my magic treasure." Su Fang suddenly said, "Wait." Dixuan asked, "Does Grand Elder Yuanli have any questions?" Qi Mian sneered. "Grand Elder Yuanli probably thinks that his strength is extraordinary and doesn't want to rely on Lord Dixuan's magic treasure to fly to the space-time node alone." "Shut up. Junior of the E-Clan, if you say another word of nonsense, I'll tear you apart." Su Fang suddenly shouted fiercely, giving everyone a fright. Chi Mian flew into a rage. "You're just a big goblin, how dare you threaten me? Our trip to the 9 Serenities this time can be said to be a narrow escape. This is not a sightseeing trip. The slightest carelessness will cause us to lose our lives. I advise everyone to put away that arrogant face of yours." Su Fang's cold gaze swept across everyone. In the end, his gaze landed on Chi Mian. He said coldly, "If you look down on me and don't want to be with me, then get the hell back to the Sky Beacon God realm immediately. If you dare to speak rudely to me again, don't blame me for being ruthless. There are more than 1 or 2 peak master gods who have died in my hands." Chi Mian was intimidated by Su Fang's aura. He trembled and couldn't say a word. Dixuan frowned and said, "Grand Elder Yuanli, what do you want to say? Please say it." Su Fang said, "I'm worried that there are countless experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance waiting for us at the space-time node that Lord Dixuan mentioned. Our plan for this trip to the 9 Serenities must be changed at the last minute." Everyone's expression changed instantly. Eli snorted disdainfully. "You're just being an alarmist." Chapter 24:14. Change the plan. Di Xian furrowed his brows. Su Fang said indifferently, "If you want to stick to the original plan, then do as you please. However, Master Mo, come with me." "Tough and domineering," Eli said darkly. "You want to change the plan just because of your guess? Yuanli, aren't you being too arrogant?" Chi Mian sneered. "The Sky Beacon Divine World's leaders in the conference hall are not trustworthy. Are you, a big goblin, very trustworthy?" Su Fang looked at Dixuan. "I've made up my mind. Do as you see fit." Di Xian pondered for a while and said, "Great Elder Yuan Li's worries are not without reason. It's just that, there are only 3 space-time nodes that Lord Di Zun gave me to enter the 9 Netherland. If someone really leaked the information, I'm afraid that even these 3 space-time nodes are not safe. If we change the plan, where do we enter the 9 Serenities? Let's take a look here." Su Fang reached out and condensed natural spirit energy into a jade slip. Then, he inserted a coordinate into the jade slip with his mind. Then, he handed the jade slip to Dixuan. "Returning Ruined Sky? V. Great Elder Yuanli, are you sure?" Dixuan raised his eyebrows and looked at Su Fang suspiciously. "Returning Ruined Sky? V?" Everyone's expression changed slightly when they heard this name. Returning Ruined Sky? V. It was one of the 10 most dangerous places in the universe and used to be ranked 3rd. Later on, the Advent Divine Palace appeared, and it was ranked 1st among all the forbidden lands in the universe. Only then was V ranked 4th. Returning Ruined Sky? V was actually a huge black hole that kept swallowing everything around it. And as time passed, Returning Ruined Sky? V's swallowing area kept expanding. At least 3 star regions and countless divine worlds were disintegrated by the black hole's power and eventually fell into the black hole. Many gods had entered it in an attempt to uncover its secrets. But entering Returning Ruined Sky? V's gods never returned, so they returned to Ruin Heaven? That was why V had such a fierce reputation. Su Fang actually pointed the space-time node to the abyss of hell at the Returning Ruins Heaven? How could they believe V? Dixuan pondered for a moment when he saw Su Fang's indifferent expression, and then he said decisively, "Go to Omega Heaven? V?" Chi Mian cried out in alarm, "Lord Dixuan, how can you listen to Yuan Li's one-sided words and enter the ruins of End? V is going on an adventure in one of the 10 most dangerous places? If you're not willing to follow us, then please return to the Sky Beacon God realm," Dixuan said in a deep voice, a supreme and dignified aura surging from his body. The others originally wanted to speak up to persuade Dixuan, but when they saw how decisive he was, they all shut up. Then Dixuan began to activate the heaven-measuring longitude and latitude ruler. Buzz buzz buzz. A Xian Guang burst forth from the celestial longitude and latitude ruler, releasing an astonishing power to distort space and extend into the void. In an instant, it was unknown how many planes the celestial longitude and latitude ruler's power passed through, but in the end, the Xian Guang suddenly paused and formed an illusory image. One could see a plane of the God realm, as if it was right in front of them. The celestial longitude and latitude ruler was a destinable artifact that ignored space and distance, and its power passed through endless space and shrunk the distance to infinity. Everyone, let's go! Dixuan stepped into the Xian Guang and then turned into nothingness, instantly appearing in the plane of the God realm. The others followed closely behind. When Su Fang stepped into the Xian Guang, he glanced at Bai Ziho, and then a trace of coldness flashed in his deep eyes. Bai Ziho's body stiffened as if he was sealed in ice, but then he smiled at Su Fang. Just when Su Fang and the others changed their plans and headed to the ruins of End, in the periphery of V's star field, a figure flashed out of a huge space-time rift. The evil lord of Tiandu. Damn it, those humans suddenly changed their direction and caused all the traps I've meticulously set up to fail. Terrifying flames burned in the eyes of the evil lord of Tiandu, and the surrounding space distorted and collapsed. He was clearly enraged. This was the space-time node that Yuan Li and the other human cultivators were most likely to use to enter the Nine Underworld. In order to capture Yuan Li and Mo Tiangong, the evil lord of Tiandu had meticulously set up a trap here in an extremely short amount of time, and was prepared to capture Yuan Li, Dixuan, and the others in one fell swoop. But they'd gone to the ruins of End that was so far away? V had caused all of the evil lord of Tiandu's preparations to fail, so how could he not be furious? Whoosh, whoosh. One figure after another flashed out of nothingness and appeared beside the evil lord of Tiandu. There were over 100 Dao Defiants, devils, Azuras, and experts from other evil forces. One of the devil race experts was Dongsha Maxing. Dongsha Maxing said coldly, Tiandu, why did those human cultivators suddenly change their plans? Could it be that the news was leaked? It's unlikely that the news was leaked. Perhaps that brat Dixuan came up with this idea on the spur of the moment. Once we capture Dixuan, this emperor will let him enjoy the same treatment as Yuan Li. The evil lord of Tiandu said murderously, and the heavenly Dao laws in an area of several meters around him instantly collapsed. The energy was chaotic, and the atmosphere was filled with killing intent and deathly stillness. Dongsha Maxing snorted. Let's talk about that nonsense after we capture those humans. Moreover, according to our previous agreement, that Yuan Li belongs to this saint. The ruins of End? V is very far away from here, and there are countless natural obstacles along the way. That Dixuan has the divine creation artifact, the heaven-measuring ruler, and can instantly reach the ruins of End? V, even if this emperor rushes over at full speed, it will still take over 100 years. With such a long time, they might have already entered the 9 underworlds. It won't be easy to find them in the 9 underworlds. You Dao Defiants don't have powerful holy artifacts, but we devils don't lack spatial artifacts. Dongsha Maxing took out a dark demonic mirror. The evil lord of Tiandu's eyes lit up. The underworld demonic heavenly mirror? That's right, it's the underworld demonic heavenly mirror. Although it's not as good as the imperial people's heaven-measuring ruler, it's still a supreme demonic artifact that can travel through the endless void. During the many great war of gods and devils, this demonic artifact was used to teleport the devil race's army. It's a pity that it can only teleport experts below the devil saint realm, but there's no limit to the number. Just delay Yuan Li, Dixuan, and the others. As long as this emperor arrives, let's see where they can run to. Su Fang was enveloped by the heaven-measuring ruler's godly aura, and he felt that the space around him was getting closer and closer. In front of him, all kinds of weird scenes of time and space were changing. His Yuan Shun was about to leave his divine aperture, and his mortal body was about to be torn apart. Luckily, This feeling only lasted for a moment. When Su Fang recovered from the weightlessness and felt that his body had weight, the scene in front of him changed drastically. Buzz. The Xian Guang around him quickly dissipated, and the heaven-measuring ruler's power also disappeared. Everything around him returned to normal. He looked over. He saw a god realm floating below. Its area was about the size of a major world's main realm. However, the world barrier outside the god realm had been shattered, and the interior was barren. There were no signs of life. Obviously, it had been destroyed long ago. This god realm was not destroyed by the resurrection of experts, but by the powerful devouring power from the distant void. In the void ahead, there was a huge black hole. No matter could be seen, and even light was devoured. Its astonishing devouring power covered the endless space. Countless fragments of matter, including the god realm below, were moving toward the black hole at a speed visible to the naked eye. When matter entered the black hole, it fell into the devouring godly aura and kept circling around the black hole. Eventually, it was quickly devoured by the black hole and disappeared without a trace. That black hole was one of the 10 most dangerous places in the universe, the ruins of End Heaven? The place where they had appeared was the ruins of End Heaven? V was in the void an unknown distance away. Although they were far away, they could still feel the terrifying devouring power. Their bodies were uncontrollably moving toward the ruins of End Heaven? V was moving in the direction of the black hole. He had no choice but to use his godly aura to stabilize himself. Seeing this, Chu Bingyan and the others turned pale. Qian Gang trembled. Great Elder Yuanli, are you sure this is the entrance to the abyss? Don't be mistaken. I'm still hoping to go to the abyss to search for treasures. Qian Gang still could not change his greedy nature. He actually wanted to go to the abyss to search for treasures. No one knew what kind of treasures he was looking for. What kind of treasures could there be in a place like the abyss that was so deadly that a Buddhist cultivator like him would go after? Everyone looked at Su Fang. Su Fang said indifferently, "It wasn't before, but it is now." Dixuan asked, "Great Elder Yuanli, please explain." Su Fang said, "The ruins of End Heaven? Which is the abyss that can devour everything. But ever since the order of the heavenly Tao became chaotic, the plane barrier at the bottom of the abyss shattered and connected to the abyss. So, through the ruins of End Heaven, can enter the abyss." Chu Bingyan questioned, "Great Elder Yuanli, have you entered the abyss before?" "No." Su Fang answered straightforwardly, leaving everyone speechless. Su Fang knew this, of course, not because he had entered the ruins of End Heaven before. But because of the information about the abyss that Huang Lingyao had given him. Huang Lingyao had entered the abyss several times in the past. Once, he accidentally fell into a space-time undercurrent in the abyss and finally escaped from the ruins of End Heaven. That was how he knew about this passageway to the Nine Netherland. Bai Ziho asked, "Are we going to enter the ruins of End Heaven directly like this?" If we enter the ruins of End Heaven directly like this, will be directly sucked into the ruins of End Heaven? Space-time turbulence is like those substances. After sinking into the deepest part of the abyss, it will quickly turn into nothingness. Su Fang's words sent chills down everyone's spines. He continued, "Every 50 to 100 years, there will be underworld energy from the abyss coming from the ruins of End Heaven. V's bottom will erupt, forming a tidal surge of underworld energy. We just need to take advantage of the ebb of the tide to enter the abyss and be directly sucked into the abyss. This is the way to enter the abyss." Everyone felt that it was very unreliable and looked at Dixuan. Chapter 24:15. Su Fang looked at Dixuan in astonishment and thought to himself, "Dixuan probably doesn't know my true identity, but he should be very clear about the real purpose of this trip to the Nine Serenities. Otherwise, he wouldn't have obeyed my every command. However, this person is extremely shrewd, decisive, and calm, as expected of a peerless figure among the imperial people." Immediately, everyone entered the divine world and found a place to hide, waiting for the Yin energy to erupt. Su Fang found a valley in the depths of the divine world and took out a small flag. It was the heaven-shrouding stars flag that he had snatched from Shenjia Tianjun of the Sanskrit. When he activated the heaven-shrouding stars flag, its power immediately covered the valley and the surrounding 10,000 miles, completely isolating them from the world. It turned out that Su Fang wanted to seize the time to merge with the eternal river chariot before entering the 9 serenities. If he could activate a part of the eternal river chariot's power, he would have an extremely powerful trump card in the 9 serenities. Moreover, it would greatly shorten the time it took to improve his cultivation. Su Fang couldn't expose himself, so he took out the heaven-shrouding stars flag and hid the surroundings. Although a treasure that could isolate the world was rare in the universe, it wasn't impossible to find one. Even if Dixuan and the others had doubts, they wouldn't connect the heaven-shrouding stars flag with Su Fang. I hope I can merge with the eternal river chariot as soon as possible. Su Fang was filled with anticipation for the fortune divine artifact, the infinity wheel. Next, Su Fang let Wang Tian? Ding Qianyu? Competition? Betrayal? Joke. Then, he used the great Tao of time to create a formation in the valley. He sat cross-legged in the formation and started to merge with the eternal river chariot. At the same time, Su Fang also started to cultivate his cultivation techniques and abilities, focusing on the 9 Yang 9 transformations and the 4 divisions transformation. At the same time, he continued to comprehend and cultivate the heavenly secret life shrinking technique, the heavenly mystery solution, and the undying soul code. About 50 years later, Su Fang had already spent more than 1,500 years in the heaven-shrouding time formation. On this day, Su Fang suddenly opened his eyes, revealing a joyful expression. After more than 1,000 years, I've finally fused with a small part of the infinity wheel. I'm barely able to activate it and display some of its most basic abilities. Su Fang took out the infinity wheel, and after activating it, it immediately became the size of a normal 4-wheeled vehicle. It floated in the air, and an astonishing aura of time emanated from it. Within the canyon, the flowing time array formation created by Su Fang quickly shattered under the aura of the eternal river chariot and returned to its normal state. Su Fang's figure flickered as he flew to the infinity chariot and sat down cross-legged on the seat. The hood of the infinity chariot slowly rotated like a river of stars. The power of time enveloped Su Fang. QL11 in an instant, Su Fang saw a very strange scene. He was immersed in the power of the infinity chariot, as if he was in a different world. He could clearly feel the flow of time within the world, but the time outside was still. It wasn't that the time outside was still, but the power of the infinity chariot had surpassed the time limit of the universe and forcibly created a transcendent world of time. Such a strange state caused Su Fang to be shocked and pleasantly surprised. If I want to break through to the Lord God level, I must fully comprehend the 4 symbols transformations. In addition, I must continue to use the 9 Yang transformations and strive to form the 75th Yang meridian as soon as possible. I can't slack off on the life-shrinking technique. Also, I must find a way to obtain the life and death interdependence of the evil Lord of Tiandu and the life-after-death technique. Even if I don't cultivate it, I can still learn a thing or two from it. In the strange world of time created by the infinity chariot, Su Fang continued to settle into a state of cultivation. He used blue sky yellow springs to devour pills and spiritual items, mainly to form the 75th Yang meridian. At the same time, he also separated his blood and water clones to cultivate and comprehend the endless mysteries of the 4 symbols transformations and the life-shrinking technique. Cultivation knew no time. Su Fang spent 1,000 years in the infinity chariot. With his current strength, he could only activate the infinity chariot to this extent. Moreover, he had to wait 1,000 years before he could continue using the infinity chariot's ability. When Su Fang came out of the infinity chariot, everything in the canyon was exactly the same as before Su Fang boarded the infinity chariot. There were no changes, and the 1,000 years Su Fang spent seemed to have been forcibly squeezed out of his fate. Moreover, Su Fang didn't feel any discomfort caused by the difference in the flow of time. The infinity chariot was truly miraculous. This is only the most basic ability of the infinity chariot. There are still some other basic abilities that I can use now. If I can completely fuse with the infinity chariot, I will be able to activate even more power. At that time, I won't have to fear facing Emperor Realm experts. Su Fang was very happy as he put the infinity chariot back into his body. Calculating with his fingers, he should be close to the ruins of End Heaven. The underworld energy inside V exploded, and there wasn't much time left. So Su Fang reached out and grabbed the heaven-shrouding star flag, and the surrounding power that covered heaven and earth immediately disappeared. Buzz, as soon as the power of the heaven-shrouding star flag disappeared, Su Fang's body suddenly moved. He grabbed a white crescent-shaped rune talisman. It was the one that Huang Lingyao had asked someone to give to Su Fang. Huang Lingyao's cold voice came. Yuan Li, have you reached the ruins of End Heaven? Outside of V? Why can't I contact you? Su Fang replied, I've already reached the ruins of End Heaven? V, where are you? That's good. I'm also in the ruins of End Heaven? V, I'm not far from the material world. We'll contact each other again after we enter the 9 underworlds. Huang Lingyao's voice didn't have a trace of emotion, as if it came from an ancient tomb. After receiving the inheritance of Emperor Mingyu, she had become completely emotionless. Su Fang said, This venerable wants to know now. When we enter the 9 underworlds, how should we work together? The ruins of End Heaven? There's a change in V. It seems that it's about to start spraying hell energy. Immediately ending the communication with Huang Lingyao, Su Fang flew into the sky from the valley. At this time, he kept moving toward the ruins of End Heaven. V's moving heavenly world suddenly stopped. The material world shook violently, and the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Master, are we going to enter the 9 underworlds now? Heaven? Earth? Fate? Paper bamboo screw, that's right. You enter Xian Wang's 6 Paths Pagoda first. Su Fang will look at the sky. Heaven baiting Bodhi to Aqiaomu? Leg armor? Green? Wave? Slow mo yu guachai? Mu? Mu? Duan gui do do yu yen? V. Swoosh. Swoosh. Di Xuan and the others flew up from the heavenly world and stood in the air. The ruins of End Heaven? The terrifying devouring power released by V had completely disappeared at this time. Something seemed to be brewing in the black hole. After more than 10 days, boom! In the black hole, space violently tumbled, and terrifying black clouds rolled. An instant later, a shocking black cloud came from the returning ruins heaven. It swept out from the depths of V and rushed out of the returning ruins heaven in an instant. V rushed straight into the sky. A cold, dead aura of death instantly shrouded heaven and earth. Su Fang felt that from his divine body to his primordial spirit, he was frozen in an instant, and his life force was also flowing away rapidly. It was different from the death aura emitted by Xieyang. From the returning ruins heaven, the death aura released by V was not only cold, but also could devour life force. However, it did not have the violent evil aura of the death aura. It was the pure hell energy from the 9 underworlds. In this death aura, Su Fang immediately lost control of heaven and earth. Unable to control his body, he suddenly staggered. Su Fang hurriedly urged the power of the world in his body to surge out of his body. Divine power shrouded the surroundings, and only then did he get out of the state of losing control, and his life force stopped flowing away. Di Xuan's body also swayed, and then a burst of divine power erupted, enveloping the surroundings and dispelling the shackles of the hell energy. The others also used their divine power to stabilize their bodies, but they looked much more miserable than Su Fang and Dixuan. Dixuan asked Su Fang, "Great Elder Yuanli, how long will it take for the enhell energy to recede?" Su Fang said, "I'm not too sure. We can only wait. Maybe a few days, maybe a few months." Then, he warned, "There is one thing you must remember. You must wait until the underworld energy tide recedes before you enter the tide, and do your best to defend yourself. Otherwise, the violent underworld energy will freeze you to death or suck your life force dry." Dixuan and the others all looked solemn, not daring to be the slightest bit careless. Bai Ziho looked around. On the surface, he looked as if nothing had happened, but there was anxiety hidden in his deep eyes. This was seen by Su Fang with a single glance. Su Fang asked coldly, "Bai Ziho, who are you waiting for?" Bai Ziho smiled. "Great Elder Yuanli, you really know how to joke. I'm just nervous because I'm about to enter the 9th underworld. Why would I be waiting for someone?" Su Fang smiled embarrassedly. Just as he was about to continue speaking, the divine light suddenly changed, and he looked up into the sky with his great perfection vision. Dixuan's expression changed drastically as well, and he looked up into the sky. A dark demonic light appeared from the void, and it actually dispersed the shackles of the enhell energy around them. Like a drop of ink in water, it quickly spread into the surroundings and dyed the sky black in the blink of an eye. Then the black mist rolled, and figures walked out from it. There were devils, and there were also Tao Defiants who were similar to human cultivators. It's the Tao Defiance Alliance. The Tao Defiance Alliance has actually appeared here. Dixuan grunted coldly, and he wasn't surprised or panicked at all. Qi Mian shouted loudly, "Yuan Li, you led us here, and then the Tao Defiance and devils arrived right after. Do you dare say that you didn't lead them here?" Everyone looked at Su Fang with doubtful gazes. Meanwhile, an expert of the devil race swiftly activated a black banner that was covered in ghastly devil energy. As soon as he did so, a gale formed from devil energy whistled out while black clouds suffused the surroundings. The heavens and the earth instantly dimmed, and it enveloped Su Fang, Dixuan, and the others along with the god dimension below them. They instantly fell into a ghastly and evil devil dimension. Even though they weren't shackled and weren't attacked for now, the dark and dense devil energy was boundless. It obstructed their vision and caused Su Fang and the others to lose their sense of direction. It was like they'd fallen into a space-time outside of this dimension. This is the enigmatic devil banner of the devil race, and it's specially used to trap gods. Even though its offensive capabilities aren't strong, it's very difficult to break through a world created by a devil artifact. Obviously, they intend to trap us here and wait for the evil exalt or devil saint to arrive. Chapter 24:16. Enchantment Demon Banner? Su Fang raised his eyebrows. This was going to be troublesome. The Enchantment Demon Banner was a famous demon artifact of the demon race. It didn't have any offensive ability, but it was best at trapping enemies. Once trapped in the demon artifact's divine power, it would cause one's primordial spirit to lose its position in time and space. Even if the yang spirit left the body, it would be difficult to rush out of the demon artifact's divine power. It would be like a headless fly in the demon chi until it was swallowed by the demon chi. In the great war of gods and demons in ancient times, a demon saint used the enchantment demon banner to trap a star field. Countless cultivators, including a supreme venerable, were trapped in the demon chi world for 10,000 years, and no one could escape. When the human cultivators defeated the demon race's army, the god cultivators trapped in the star field were trapped to death. More than 2/3 of their demon chi was swallowed, and the supreme venerable was greatly injured. This battle greatly increased the reputation of the bewitching demon banner, and its ferocious reputation was illustrious. Su Fang and the others were trapped in the enchantment demon banner's divine power, and it wasn't a serious matter for a short time. However, how could the devils and Tao Defiants who were pursuing him only possess such ability? If they waited for the evil lord and the demon saint to come, they could only wait to be captured alive. The dragon bird can gather the yang qi of heaven and earth, condense the divine sun, and dispel the demon qi. It can counter the enchantment demon banner's power, but my identity will be exposed. Su Fang hesitated to release the dragon bird. The demon qi around them became denser. Even with Su Fang's perfect vision, he could only see a range of 1,000 feet. His other senses were also suppressed and distorted. Suddenly Qi Mian laughed complacently. I didn't expect that the treasures I prepared to enter the 9th underworld would be put to good use before we even arrived. Qiangang's surprised voice sounded. Qi Mian, you have a treasure that can counter the enchantment demon banner? Dixuan laughed loudly. I almost forgot that the Qi people have a creation divine artifact that specializes in countering all kinds of maze and illusion formations. The enchantment destroying south-pointing chariot. Su Fang said in surprise. The enchantment destroying south-pointing chariot? What kind of magic treasure is this? Qi Mian sneered disdainfully. You don't even know the famous magical equipment of the human race? How ignorant. However, you are a big goblin. It is normal for you to be ignorant. Dixuan explained patiently. The illusionary destroying south-pointing chariot is a fortune divine artifact. Its fame in the primordial era far surpassed the bewitching devil-sifting banner. In the world-shaking battle that would decide the outcome of the battle between the human race and the demon race, when the two sides were fighting fiercely, the experts of the demon race released demonic fog that filled the world, causing the human race's army to fall into chaos. The experts of my race used the illusionary south-destroying compass chariot to break through the devilish mist and defeat the devilish army in one fell swoop, causing the devilish race to suffer great losses and thus establishing our race's position as the ruler of the 3 realms. Break the illusory, devil-sifting banner. What an amazing magical treasure! Only now did Su Fang understand why the supreme existence of the imperial people wanted Qi Mian to follow him into the 9th underworld. He had the illusionary south-pointing chariot, which could at least guarantee that he would not get lost in the chaotic spacetime in the 9th underworld. It seemed that the Qi people were indeed extraordinary. They had a fortune divine artifact like the illusionary south-pointing chariot, and Qi Mian's status among the Qi people was also extraordinary. In addition, the Qi people could take out such a supreme magical treasure like the illusionary south-pointing chariot, which showed that the Qi people also had a big plan in mind when they entered the 9th underworld. QL 11-inch I activated the illusionary south-pointing chariot and it was easy to break the power of the bewitching devil-sifting banner. Big Goblin Yuan Li, remember this. I, Qi Mian, saved your life this time. Let's see if you still dare to be arrogant in front of me in the future. Qi Mian shouted domineeringly. Su Fang smiled indifferently. Qi Mian took out a magical treasure. It was a 2-wheeled chariot that looked similar to the Infinity Chariot. Upon closer inspection, it was far less domineering than the Infinity Chariot. There was a puppet standing on the chariot, which the Infinity Chariot didn't have. After Qi Mian activated the magical treasure, the puppet on the illusionary south-pointing chariot suddenly raised an arm and pointed in a certain direction. The chariot sped forward, releasing a burst of power that could crush all illusions, crushing the layers of demonic fog. The small chariot was like a giant sword that could break through the wind and waves, destroying all illusions. Dixuan and the others followed closely behind the illusionary south-pointing chariot. After a dozen breaths, they finally rushed out of the demonic fog and reappeared in the natural void. Everyone was surprised and happy. Dixuan praised. It's all thanks to Qi Mian this time. Lord Dixuan, thank you for your praise. It's just a small matter, not worth mentioning. Qi Mian said humbly, but he couldn't hide the smugness in his eyes. Who knew his smugness only lasted for a moment, and then his expression immediately froze. The aura of death had condensed into a sky that enveloped them within 1,000,000 kilometers of the void. A dark and gloomy land had appeared below them. It wasn't an ordinary substance, but a substance condensed from devilish energy, and it emanated monstrous devilish energy. The aura of death and devilish energy formed an enormous sealed world that shackled Dishwan and the others. This world was an extremely enormous formation that had been created by the joint efforts of 1,000,000 devils and Tao defiants. Shockingly, there were 12 peerless experts who had reached the peak of the Lord God realm amongst these devils and Tao defiants, and they had sealed up the surrounding heaven and earth. Their goal was very simple, and it was to keep Dishwan and the others busy until the demon saint and evil exalted lords arrived. Dishwan smiled bitterly. Looks like there's going to be a bloody battle this time. Chu Bingyan asked, even the Lord Dishwan's celestial ruler can't break through these shackles? Dishwan said, the celestial ruler is only a spatial teleportation treasure, and it can't break through restrictions and formations. Not to mention that this is a world created by 1,000,000 experts at the same time. Then he sighed helplessly. There's a creation artifact called the Sunpierce Golden Rainbow, and it can break through any shackles and restrictions. I heard that it's in the hands of the Holy Sun Su Fang, but I've never seen him use it. Perhaps the rumors are wrong. Su Fang rubbed the tip of his nose, and he felt very helpless in his heart. Then a wave of doubt surged in his heart. Strange, I clearly had the chance to obtain the Sunpierce Golden Rainbow back in the Golden Rainbow King's world, but why did I give it to Goddess Luo? What happened before, but why can't I remember? Bai Ziho said, the only thing we can do now is to kill our way out of the encirclement before the evil exalted lords and demon saint arrive. That's the only way. As Dishwan nodded, a supreme divine might that could control heaven and earth surged out from his body. A ray of divine light slowly rose from the top of his head, and it swiftly condensed into a mountain that was 1,000 meters tall. This mountain was none other than the exalted celestial mountain. Of course, it was not the exalted celestial mountain itself, but Dishwan's heavenly Tao avatar. The exalted celestial mountain was not as simple as a mountain. It represented the supreme will of the heavenly Tao and supreme divine might, and it was above all things and laws, controlling heaven and earth and the universe. Imperial people's powerhouses had the talent to control the heavenly Tao, and the great Tao that the outstanding geniuses cultivated was the Tao of imperial heaven, which was above all great Taos. Therefore, like Dishwan, Dishwan's heavenly Tao avatar was also the exalted celestial mountain. However, unlike Dishwan, Dishwan's heavenly Tao avatar was clearly clearer and more realistic. It was like the exalted celestial mountain itself, which had shrunk countless times. The divine might it released was also incomparably majestic, and it was filled with supreme divine might, causing everyone to tremble. Dishwan's cultivation has already reached the height of an intermediate lord at such a young age, and he's even condensed the heavenly Tao avatar to such a shocking level. His strength has definitely surpassed lords, and ordinary sovereigns might not be able to defeat him in a battle. Su Fang was extremely shocked by Dishwan's strength as well, but he did not feel inferior. If he was given another 10 million years, he was confident that he would be able to surpass Dishwan and even surpass sovereigns and transcend the world. Bai Ziho shouted loudly, "All hail the Lord Dishwan! My heavenly Tao avatar might not be able to break through its shackles. Don't be happy too early." Dishwan seemed to be extremely calm. He shook his head and smiled. The exalted celestial mountain formed from the heavenly Tao avatar rumbled down towards the ground that had been condensed from baleful chi. Space shattered, the laws collapsed, and the ground shattered. Terrifying cracks appeared in the sky, and the entire world shook violently. The 1,000,000 Tao defiants and devil race experts all spat blood at the same time from Dishwan's full-strength attack, and tens of thousands of experts were shaken to death on the spot. Dishwan's terrifying attack actually possessed such terrifying might. Su Fang estimated that even Shroud's clone's full-strength attack would not possess such shocking might. However, the baleful chi on the ground that had been shaken to pieces surged, and then it recovered to its original state. The cracks in the sky swiftly closed as well. Even though Dixuan was powerful, the world that had been shackling them had been created by 1,000,000 experts at the same time. It was absolutely not something that he could break through by himself. After executing this attack, Dixuan's face had become pale, and his aura had clearly withered slightly. Clearly, he had consumed quite a bit of energy. Everyone's hearts suddenly sank. Dixuan looked at Su Fang. "Grand Elder Yuanli, do you have any ideas?" Before Su Fang could speak, Qi Mian laughed coldly with disdain. "Even the Lord Dixuan is unable to break through its shackles. What can a big goblin do?" Su Fang laughed coldly and embarrassedly. He actually sat cross-legged in the air, and closed his eyes, as if he had nothing to do with this. Next, Chu Bingyan, Qiangang, Eli, Bai Ziho, and Qi Mian each executed their powerful abilities and magic treasures, but the result was naturally to no avail. Their hearts sank to the bottom, and even Dixuan lost his composure. His brows were tightly furrowed. If they continued to delay, they would all be unable to escape the fate of being suppressed when the Demon Saint and Evil Dominator experts arrived. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Su Fang suddenly opened his eyes and said, "The tide of Nether Yin Qi is receding. This is the best time to enter the 9th underworld." So he had been using his perfect hearing ability to observe the ruins of End? V's jet tide. Qi Mian said angrily, "So what? Can you break through the shackles and escape into the ruins of End? V's not enough? I have no choice but to suspect that you intentionally led us into the trap of the devil race and Tao defiance." "Qi Mian, shut up!" Dixuan shouted coldly, and then he said to Su Fang, "Grand Elder Yuanli, could it be that you have a way to escape?" "Of course I have a way to escape, and that's to kill all the devil race and Tao defiance." Chapter 24:17. "You!" Qi Mian mocked and ridiculed. "How are you going to kill all the Tao defiance and devil race experts with this lousy chariot?" "Qi Mian, shut up. Your younger brother Qi Zhao was killed by the devil race expert Shui Yen in the lifeless prairie. What does that have to do with Yuan Li's Grand Elder? Yet you keep targeting Yuan Li's Grand Elder. You're really unreasonable. If you dare to mock Yuan Li's Grand Elder again, even if he doesn't take it to heart, I'll smash your stinky mouth." Qian Gang roared angrily. Su Fang had saved his life in the lifeless prairie, so he was naturally grateful to Su Fang. However, Qi Mian kept mocking Su Fang, so even a good-tempered Buddhist cultivator like him couldn't take it anymore. QL11. It turned out that Qi Mian's younger cousin, Qi Zhao, was also a Yuan Tiangong genius. When he was training in the lifeless prairie, he was captured by Shui Yen along with Goddess Luo and many other cultivators. Shui Yen used this opportunity to force Su Fang to show himself. Su Fang agreed to Shui Yan's challenge, but half of the cultivators were still devoured by Shui Yen. Qi Zhao was one of the unlucky ones. Qi Mian took out his anger on Su Fang and kept targeting Su Fang along the way. Dixuan stared at the Infinity Chariot. That's the legendary supreme creation artifact of time, the Infinity Emperor's Infinity Chariot. As expected of a supreme imperial people, not only did he recognize the Infinity Chariot at first glance, but he also knew the previous owner of the Infinity Chariot. A creation artifact? And it's a time-type creation artifact? Chu Bingyan and the others were shocked, and their eyes lit up as they looked at the Infinity Chariot. Then, endless greed and desire to possess surged in their eyes. The Infinity Chariot quickly enlarged. Su Fang stepped onto the chariot and sat down on the seat. Crack, crack, crack. It felt like a chariot loaded with heavy objects was slowly moving out. However, the chariot wasn't carrying any objects, but time. The wheels turned slowly. It was as if the wheels of history were moving, unstoppable. Wherever the wheels passed, they left behind 2 mysterious Xian Guang traces in the void, just like the 2-wheel tracks left behind by the Infinity Wheel. He took a closer look. From the inside of the Xian Guang, where the ruts had formed, One could see scenes of people and things that had long disappeared in the long river of history. Heaven and earth were opened. All things were born. The stars moved and the myriad of phenomena changed. Various scenes of the changes of the universe appeared one after another. Scenes of gods, demons, and countless other strange races battling each other in the heavens and earth could be seen in these ruts. The infinity wheel carried with it the momentum of a surging river of history and rolling wheels. Wherever it went, the demonic energy and the aura of death that filled the world vanished without a trace. The world was also crumbling under the wheels. The sky and the earth were shattering layer by layer. The universe chariot's speed seemed slow, but it actually surpassed the limits of time. Before Di Xian and the others could wake up from the intense shock, the universe chariot had already crushed through millions of miles of space, crushing the world that shackled them into pieces. Along with the destruction of the world, the million devils and Tao Defiants sprayed blood from their mouths and fell into a heavily injured state. What sort of divine artifact is that? It actually possesses such terrifying might. Kill him. We absolutely can't allow these humans to escape. Over a dozen peerless experts who were only a step away from the peak of the Imperial Exalt realm and the Tao Defiants were shocked and astounded. They disregarded their injuries and leaped through the sky to attack Su Fang. The other experts swarmed over as well, and they charged madly towards the Infinity Wheel and Dixuan's group. Bang! Bang! Demonic energy and the aura of death surged like stormy waves, and they were about to drown Su Fang. The Infinity Wheel continued flying while facing the attacks of the devils and Tao Defiant. The wheels rolled while emanating the extremely formidable might of time, and it shattered all sorts of attacks before being swept away by the wheels and vanishing within the ruts. Crack! 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 The Infinity Wheel was unstoppable. It instantly arrived before the experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance who were comparable to peak over gods, and then it instantly crushed them. The Xian Guang flickered repeatedly within the ruts and swept 3 experts into it. A few shrill cries resounded in succession before they were swept away into the river of time and vanished without a trace. 9 other peak-over gods had erupted with their full strength and even burned their vitality and death quintessence to finally escape the terrifying might of the Infinity Wheel. The other experts of the Devil Race and Tao Defiance weren't as lucky as them. They were swept away by the wheels of the Infinity Wheel, fell into the ruts, and were swallowed up by the river of time. In the blink of an eye, 3 peerless experts comparable to peak-over gods and almost 100,000 devils and Tao Defiants had been crushed by the Infinity Wheel. The wills of the other devils and Tao Defiants completely collapsed when they witnessed this scene, and they fled in all directions. Those experts who were charging towards Dixuan's group hadn't even had the chance to launch an attack when they witnessed the terrifying might of the Infinity Wheel. They were instantly terrified out of their wits, and they turned around and fled towards the distance. 1,000,000 devil experts and Tao Defiants had actually been instantly crushed and utterly crushed by the Infinity Wheel. The might of the Infinity Wheel was actually so terrifying. What a formidable magic treasure! What a big goblin, Yuan Li! No wonder even the supreme existences of my race paid so much attention to him and asked me to fully cooperate with him in the 9th hell. Dixuan exclaimed repeatedly with admiration, and his gaze towards Su Fang carried admiration. Chu Bingyan, Qian Gang, and the others had tempestuous waves in their hearts while their eyes were filled with disbelief. It was even to the extent that some of their eyes flickered with greed that couldn't be suppressed no matter what. What are you still waiting for? V. Su Fang let out a thunderous shout from within the Infinity Wheel. Only now did Dixuan and the others return to their senses, and they suppressed the shock in their hearts as they flew towards Su Fang. Just as Su Fang was about to put away the Infinity Wheel, the Tao runes of the life-shrinking technique and the heavens expansion technique flickered rapidly in the depths of his mind at the same time, indicating that fatal danger was about to arrive. Hurry up and get onto the Infinity Wheel! A supreme sovereign is about to attack. Su Fang's divine light flickered. Di Xuan and the others didn't dare be careless, and they all jumped onto the infinity wheel. The infinity wheel was extremely small, so it instantly became crowded with 6 more people squeezing onto it. Everyone enter the space within my magic treasure. Di Xuan decisively activated the divine might of the heaven measuring ruler and swept everyone into the space within the magic treasure. Just as Su Fang was activating the infinity wheel, a dark demonic light flashed high up in the sky, and then a monstrous demonic chi instantly covered the sky and enveloped Su Fang and the others. Following it, another extremely powerful and evil aura descended upon the place. Dongsha Mashing! Evil Sovereign Tian Du. Su Fangda was shocked. He didn't expect that these 2 old rivals would attack at the same time. This time, they were in big trouble. Di Xuan's divine light also flickered. But in the next moment, his eyes burned with fighting spirit, and he asked in a deep voice, "Great Elder Yuanli, do you still have the strength to fight? Fight against 2 supreme sovereigns?" Su Fang didn't expect that Di Xuan, who seemed to be a very calm person, was actually so crazy. The goal of this trip is the 9 underworlds. If I want to fight against evil sovereign Tian Du and Dongsha Mashing, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Let's go. Su Fang activated the infinity wheel with all his strength. Infinity wheel? The legendary supreme time magic treasure has actually reappeared in the myriad worlds. The infinity wheel, together with Yuanli and Di Xuan, is all mine. Dongsha Mashing's surprised and ecstatic voice came from the sky. While his voice was still echoing in the sky, a palm condensed from demonic chi descended from the sky and landed on the infinity wheel. Dongsha, Yuanli and Di Xuan are yours, and the infinity wheel is mine. Evil Sovereign Tian Du's cold voice suddenly sounded. A large hand as white as a woman's, carrying a terrifying power of life and death, came one after another and bombarded the infinity wheel. Evil Sovereign Tian Du and Dongsha Mashing attacked almost at the same time, fighting to suppress Su Fang and the infinity wheel. Who knew when the attacks of the 2 supreme sovereigns collided, the demonic chi palm and the large hand shattered at the same time, and the infinity wheel appeared in the returning ruins heaven, not far from the periphery of V-City. The infinity wheel could control the flow of time, and space had lost its meaning to the infinity wheel. Evil Sovereign Tian Du and Dongsha Mashing were extremely powerful, but no matter how fast and shocking their attacks were, they couldn't overlap with the infinity wheel at the same time, so they couldn't pose any threat to the infinity wheel. Qilin, I'll leave the rest to you. Su Fang and Di Xuan jumped off the infinity wheel, and Su Fang immediately released the Qilin. After continuously activating the infinity wheel just now, Su Fang's magic power and primordial spirit were greatly consumed, and he was almost exhausted, so he could only leave the Qilin to enter the underworld energy tide. Su Fang had never entered such a vast underworld energy tide, and he didn't know where the underworld energy would take him, so he had to rely on his luck. Not only was the Qilin powerful, but it was also an auspicious beast, so its luck was naturally not as good as other cultivators and the big goblin. Yes, master. The Qilin transformed into a black-robed man and cupped his fists towards Su Fang. After all these years of training, the Qilin might not be loyal, but it had sincerely submitted to Su Fang, which was why Su Fang dared to entrust his life to it. The Qilin opened its mouth and sucked Su Fang and Di Xuan into its stomach space, then its body flashed and flew towards the underworld energy tide that was receding. If I let you escape from this emperor's hands again, where will this saint's face go? Dongsha Mashing broke through the void and pounced towards the Qilin. Under his terrifying aura, the underworld energy tide shook violently, and the Qilin felt that the space around it was shackled, and it was unable to move. Dongsha, don't kill this big goblin. The method of refining the nether sand is still in their treasure space. Evil Sovereign Tian Du's voice came from afar. This saint knows what to do. Dongsha Moshing snorted and was about to shackle the Qilin. Suddenly a gust of underworld energy burst out from the tide, and swept towards Dongsha Moshing with an earth-shattering force. Who is it who can control the underworld energy? Dongsha Moshing was shocked. Facing such a shocking amount of underworld energy, even a demon saint like him didn't dare to be careless. This wasn't the kind of death energy that the demon clan controlled, but the pure Nine Nether Chi from the Nine Netherland, and only the legendary evil existence of the Nine Netherland could control it. Dongsha Moshing's eyes shot out a ray of demonic light, which quickly turned into a claw, and crushed the underworld energy that was sweeping towards it. Chapter 24:18. Dongsha Moshing hesitated for a moment, but gave up on the idea of pursuing them. Evil Dominator Tian Du snorted. Only someone from profound Nether cult can control Nether Chi. The one hiding in the tide just now must be the cult leader of profound Nether cult. Those human cultivators suddenly changed their plans, and it's most likely because she leaked the information. That cult leader of profound Nether cult really deserves to die. How dare she join the Tao Defiance Alliance? The Eastern Demon Saint also flew into a rage out of humiliation. 1,000,000 experts and 2 peerless sovereigns, yet we actually let those human cultivators escape. If news of this gets out, you and I will be laughed at by those sovereigns. The youngest son that you doted on the most, as well as the genius of your demon race, Shuiyan. Both of them died at the hands of that great demon, Yuanli, speaking of which, it should be you, Eastern Sha, who has lost face. Evil Dominator Tian Du laughed sinisterly, and directly poked Dongsha Moshing's sore spot. Terrifying demonic flames surged in Dongsha Moshing's eyes, and the surrounding void seemed to be melting. Everything within 100,000 miles of him was heading toward the returning ruined sky. These matter fragments were instantly reduced to ashes. Even if they escape into the 9 underworlds, they won't be able to escape this saint's pursuit. The 9 underworlds is a land of death, and it happens to be the domain of my death clan. In order to kill that big goblin Yuan Li and obtain the treasures of the 9 underworlds, it's very worthwhile to go to the 9 underworlds. Dongsha Moshing snorted coldly, and then with a flash of demonic light, he disappeared into nothingness. For the nether sand, I have to go to the 9 underworlds anyway. That's the domain of us Tao Defiance. Let's see where you human cultivators can escape to. Evil Dominator Tian Du also quickly left, and prepared to enter the 9 underworlds from another spacetime node to continue pursuing Su Fang. The dark clouds covered the sky and the sun. Suddenly the dark clouds seemed to be boiling. A peerless black lightning swept across the dark clouds, and a figure was violently thrown out of the lightning and fell wildly. Whoosh! A wave of demonic chi condensed into a wave that swept out and stabilized his body. Was it from the returning ruins heaven? In the depths of V, there was a Qilin monster that had been swept over by the tide of Yin energy. The Qilin monster was covered in wounds. In some places bones could even be seen. One of its arms had disappeared. Even a supreme big goblin that was equivalent to a peak over god was heavily injured. It's really lucky that I didn't die in the tide of underworld Yin Chi. The Qilin monster was frightened and frightened. It flew to the ground shakily, and then opened its mouth to spit out Su Fang and Dixuan from its stomach. Qilin monster, you've done well this time. I will reward you accordingly. Go and recover first. Su Fang kept the Kirin monster into the Xianwang 6 Paths Pagoda space deep inside his body, and then gave it a few blood crystals that contained the big goblin's life force. Sensing the astonishing life force contained within the blood crystal, the originally gloomy Qilin monster was instantly overjoyed. A drop of blood essence from a great saint of the demonic clan was enough to tempt it. These blood crystals were condensed from the blood essence of a sovereign-level ferocious beast that Su Fang had killed in the prison suppression codex. It was naturally easy for the Kirin monster to recover from its injuries. Even if it could not help it become a great saint of the demonic clan, it could help it reach a higher level. Is this the ninth underworld? Su Fong fixed his eyes on it. The world was dark, filled with a dense and chaotic aura of death. It was like a huge and boundless tomb. Thick black clouds floated in the sky. Occasionally, a bolt of lightning flashed through the black clouds. Only then could one barely see the scenery. The ground was dark and gloomy as well. It was formed from the chi of the underworld. There were mountains, forests, and rivers on the ground, but the mountains were dark. The trees in the forest and the flowing rivers were black, gray, and a strange blood color. There was not a single trace of life in them. The space was filled with the cold aura of death. In this short period of time, Su Fong felt as if his vital spirit and physical body had been frozen stiff. There was no trace of spiritual chi in the world. There was only the aura of death. In this space-time, death was everything. Life and everything related to life were incompatible with this place and could not survive for a long time. In the cold, dead air, black threads that were difficult to see with the naked eye floated. Sensing the aura of life, they swarmed towards Su Fong and Dixuan. Su Fong was surprised to find that these black threads could ignore his defense and directly penetrate into his body, madly devouring his life aura. Those are some remnant souls that can't be reincarnated. They are scattered in the ninth underworld and condensed from underworld Yin energy. They can devour life aura. Although they are easy to get rid of, they are everywhere and very difficult to deal with. Dixuan reminded Su Fong. Then, he took out a white jade pendant and hung it on his waist. This jade pendant was obviously an extraordinary divine tool. It emitted a divine aura that could isolate life aura. It enveloped Dixuan and no more underworld Yin threads floated toward him. Su Fong was about to disperse the underworld Yin threads that had penetrated into his body when the cold voice of the second primordial spirit suddenly sounded in his mind. Main body, these underworld Yin threads are excellent materials for cultivating the immortal soul code. Just like the spiritual chi that cultivators need for cultivation, you can use them to cultivate the immortal soul code. The more the better. I'll leave them all to you. Only then did Su Fong relax. The second primordial spirit's divine aura permeated into the body of the main body and then used the immortal soul code. Very soon, the troublesome underworld Yin threads were completely devoured. Soon, a large amount of underworld Yin threads continuously poured in. They all became materials for the second primordial spirit's cultivation. With the help of these underworld Yin threads, the second primordial spirit's cultivation speed was 10 times faster than normal. This was also Su Fong's first unexpected gain after coming to the netherworld. Seeing the underworld Yin threads continuously penetrating Su Fong's body without any abnormalities, Dixuan was very surprised. However, he didn't say anything. Instead, he released Chu Bingyan, Qiangang, Yi Ling, and the others from the internal space of the heaven-measuring longitude ruler. We've arrived at the netherworld? Chu Bingyan and the others were astonished. Sensing the environment of the netherworld, these experts all had very serious expressions. They weren't relaxed at all. They had clearly come prepared and each had their own methods to resist the underworld Yin thread. Great Elder Yuan Li, what's the plan next? Dixuan asked Su Fong politely. In the ruins of End Heaven? Other than V, after witnessing the shocking divine aura of Su Fong's infinity wheel, not only Dixuan, but everyone was filled with reverence for Su Fong. Even Qi Mian, who had a grudge against Su Fong, completely hid all of his resentment in the bottom of his heart. I plan to. Just as Su Fong opened his mouth, his divine aura changed slightly. He looked up at the sky. Whoosh from the thick black clouds, a black rain fell and drifted to the ground. Dixuan raised his eyebrows. It's the soul rain. Once touched, it will erode the primordial spirit. If it's an ordinary deity, their soul will even fall into the cycle of reincarnation. Everyone be careful. No one dared to be careless. Divine aura poured out of their bodies and condensed into a defensive light screen above their head. Pa pa pa. The black raindrops hit the defensive light screen and trembled. The light screen quickly thinned. Fortunately, this soul rain came and went quickly. After a rain curtain, everything returned to normal. Everyone was surprised. If the soul fall rain continued for 2 hours, even overgods would have no choice but to focus and deal with it. Although it would not be fatal, it would consume an astonishing amount of energy. It was impossible to absorb spiritual energy in the 9th underworld, so it was only a matter of time before the soul fall rain ran out. Underworld threads, soul rain, these are the most common things in the abyss. They're already very troublesome for us. There's also the more powerful underworld fog, soul-shattering wind, and all kinds of evil existences. Everyone must be careful at all times. If you're not careful, you'll be in danger of losing your life. Dixuan was very patient. He warned the others again. Su Fang said, "Previously, I used a lot of energy to activate the infinity wheel. I must recover as soon as possible. Dixuan, you guys go to the depths of the abyss and look for the Nether River." After he finished speaking, Su Fang rolled out a jade slip and flew it to Dixuan. Dixuan grabbed it and scanned it with his consciousness. He was immediately surprised. He sent a voice transmission, "Lord Yuanli, why is this information different from what the clan gave me?" Su Fang sent a voice transmission instead. "This information is the latest. So Grand Elder Yuanli was prepared. It looks like our plan in the abyss has a higher chance of success." Dixuan nodded. "Also, be careful of Bai Ziho." Bai Ziho? He's the spy of the Tao Defiance? Dixuan wasn't very surprised. He'd expected that there would be a spy among them. He just hadn't noticed that it was Bai Ziho. "We'll keep him alive for now and use him as bait to lure the Tao Defiance. I'm afraid that instead of luring Heavenly Flame over, we'll attract evil Lord Tiandu and Dongsha Mashing. It looks like you also know about the matter of luring Heavenly Flame Divine Lord. Even if evil Lord Tiandu and Dongsha Mashing are attracted, we don't have to be afraid. The key is to protect Master Mo." Dixuan nodded. He took out a green pearl and rolled it to Su Fang. "This is the green nether pearl. It's specially prepared for entering the abyss. It can be used to communicate with each other in the abyss." Then, Dixuan led the others into the depths of the abyss. Su Fang found a cave on a barren hill. After entering the cave, he released Gui Gui and sat cross-legged in the cave to recover. Gui Gui had devoured a large amount of nether chi in the small world. In addition, she cultivated the Yellow Springs Blood Sea. Therefore, she didn't feel uncomfortable in the abyss at all. Instead, she was very excited. About 10 days later, buzz. Suddenly, there was a commotion in his body. It produced a very clear buzzing sound. The commotion came from the rune talisman Huang Lingyao gave him. As expected of the successor of the nether divine race, the rune talisman she condensed wasn't affected in the abyss. Huang Lingyao's voice was filled with deathly stillness. "Yuanli, entering the ruins of End? Were you the one who helped V? Thank you." "There's no need to thank me. I saved you because I hope you can help me in the abyss." Chapter 24:19. Right now, the Nine Netherland is no longer the land of reincarnation. Although I'm the successor of the divine tribe of Dark Underworld, it's still full of dangers for me. Some places are extremely dangerous even for supreme emperors, let alone me. So, what's so strange about me asking for help? How do you want me to help you? I already have an extreme spiritual item called the mysterious Ganoderma, which is very useful to me. However, the place where the mysterious Ganoderma grows is guarded by powerful netherworld monsters. It's difficult for me to kill them alone, so only you can help. I'll do my best, but I'll say this first. If it's beyond my ability, then I can only say sorry. Of course. Could it be that this sect master would intentionally send you to your death? You should recover first. This sect master is going to look for some extreme treasures. I will contact you again after a while. You have to be careful and don't lose your life in the Nine Nether. I can't find a suitable helper for the time being." Then Huang Lingyao's voice fell silent. Just when Su Fang thought that Huang Lingyao had gone far away, her voice sounded again. "Yuan Li, is your master still in the Yuan Tiangong?" Su Fang found that Huang Lingyao's tone was no longer so cold and emotionless, and couldn't help but be surprised, of course. Could it be that Lord Sect Master wants to see my master? Humph, Huang Lingyao snorted coldly, and then her voice didn't sound again. Huang Lingyao would never dream that I'm Su Fang, right? After ending the conversation with Huang Lingyao, Su Fang chuckled. But when he thought of his relationship with Huang Lingyao, he felt a little strange. Su Fang used the Heaven Supervisor token to display its divine power and created a barrier in the cave, isolating the Yin energy that was everywhere. The cold death energy and shackles were weakened by more than half. Then, he used the fiendish demon refinement art to restore his original form. He created a time formation and began to recover the magic power and primordial spirit power he had used to activate the Infinity Wheel. In the Umber realm, it was like being in a tomb. Recovery was extremely slow. After spending nearly 3,000 years in the time and time formation, the exhausted Dharma power and origin spirit power slowly recovered to their peak state. Few outside the cave, a gust of wind was howling. The sound of the wind was accompanied by strange sounds that sounded like the cries of ghosts. Su Fang, who was inside the array formation of the cave, felt his essence spirit throbbing when he heard this voice. It made him feel as though his soul was about to shatter. Su Fang was shocked, and a yang spirit flew out of the formation. He took a closer look. A black cloud engulfed the world, and the strange voice came from the black cloud. Underworld fog, soul-shattering wind? Su Fang's yang spirit was almost frozen and blown away, so he quickly withdrew it back into his body. The ninth underworld is indeed filled with danger at all times. Su Fang quickly strengthened the enchantment again. The soul-shattering wind swept past the hill where Su Fang was. Fortunately, the enchantment condensed by Su Fang with the power of the heavenly Tao order was very strong and did not pose any threat to him. Although it was a close call, Su Fang once again witnessed the horror of the ninth underworld. Pa. The soul-shattering wind had just passed. Outside the cave, he heard something fall to the ground. Damn the ninth underworld! Even a gust of wind is so terrifying. If it weren't for the Dharma treasure that specializes in dealing with the soul-shattering wind, we would have died here. There are more than 100 people in our team. This time, we encountered the soul-shattering wind and the underworld fog. We're lucky to be able to survive. I don't know where this damn soul-shattering wind blew us to. We're in trouble now. What are you afraid of? We have Bai Ziho's life origin token. No matter where he is, as long as we find him and kill those human cultivators, we'll have made a great contribution. With just the two of us, do you think we can kill those human cultivators? We'll be lucky if we don't get killed by them. There's a cave here. There's a enchantment. It must be those humans who entered the ninth underworld. After a cry of surprise, boom boom boom, the enchantment was attacked violently. You two Tao Defiance, do you want to die? A cold voice came from the cave. Then, a wave of shocking demonic poison seeped out from the inside of the enchantment. Stop. It's a demon, not a human cultivator. The attacks outside the cave stopped. A middle-aged demon walked out of the enchantment. It was Su Fang, who had used the demon shape-shifting technique. Su Fang did not fuse with his body this time. Instead, he transformed into a demon whose cultivation base was only at the peak of the ninth heaven of the Tao integration stage. In the lifeless prairie, Su Fang had suppressed many demon experts. Most of them were devoured by Gui Gui, but some were left behind to use the demon shape-shifting technique. The middle-aged demon expert that Su Fang had transformed into emitted a cold demonic light that swept over the two Dao Defiants outside. One of the two Dao Defiants was a middle-aged, bald man with a ferocious look on his face. He was actually a lesser Lord-level expert. However, he was not a resurrected expert. Instead, he was a bona fide cultivator. Moreover, he had not been modified in any way similar to how the evil dominator of Tiandu had modified cultivators. It was very obvious that he was a cultivator who had sided with the Dao Defiants and had willingly become their puppet. Ever since the various worlds had been isolated by the sky curtain, especially in recent years, more and more human cultivators had sided with the Dao Defiants. This bald man possessed the formidable strength of a lesser Lord-level expert. He was definitely one of the strongest among them. The other young man was a resurrected expert. He wore gray robes, and his body emanated the aura of life. However, his aura of life also contained a faint aura of death. This Dao Defiance cultivation base was extraordinary as well. He had reached the 9th heaven of the Dao integration stage. They had just escaped from the underworld fog. Although they did not seem to be injured, their auras were dispirited and weak. Clearly, their primordial spirits had been damaged by the soul-shattering wind in the underworld fog. So you're from the Dao Defiance Alliance as well. The two Dao Defiants heaved sighs of relief. However, they were still extremely vigilant. Su Fang asked coldly, "You're looking for those human cultivators as well?" "That's right. It looks like you've come to the 9th hell on the orders of the Dongsha Mashing to search for that big goblin, Yuanli?" The bald man smiled. Then, he extended an invitation to Su Fang. "We encountered that damnable underworld fog and soul-shattering wind and got separated from our companions. Why don't we work together to search for those human cultivators?" Su Fang revealed a thoughtful expression. "Work together?" The young Dao Defiant secretly transmitted his voice to the bald man. "Why do you want to work together with this demon?" The bald man replied, "We're quite injured right now. If we have a cannon fodder on our way, wouldn't it be much easier no matter what treasures or underworld monsters we encounter? He's only at the 9th heaven of the Dao integration stage. Once we recover from our injuries, he'll be a lamb at our mercy. We can do whatever we want with him then." The young Dao Defiant laughed coldly in his heart. "You humans really are cunning." Su Fang discerned the bald man's intentions, and he laughed coldly in his heart before he asked, "What's in it for me to work together with the two of you?" The bald man said, "The 9th hell is extremely dangerous, so it's naturally much safer for us to work together. Moreover, there are treasures that contain the essence of extreme Een everywhere in the 9th hell. You wouldn't intend to return empty-handed after taking such a risk to come to the 9th hell, right?" "Treasures?" A devilish glow flashed through Su Fang's eyes, and he seemed to be rather tempted. The young man persuaded, "I've made a lot of preparations before coming to the 9th hell, and I've especially borrowed a treasure called the Tranquil Een Pearl. So long as there's a treasure that contains the essence of extreme Een within an area of 5,000 kilometers, then the Tranquil Een Pearl will be able to sense it. Thus, searching for treasures is extremely easy. If you're willing to work together with me, then I'll give you a share of the treasures we find. I've been separated from my companions as well, so it's just right for us to travel together." Su Fang didn't hesitate any longer and readily agreed. The bald man and the young man were instantly overjoyed. The young Dao Defiant withdrew a dark disk, and then it emanated a strand of ethereal divine might that vanished into the heavens and the earth after he activated it. After a short moment, the disk droned, and then a red dot lit up on it. The young man said with great joy, "Baiziho's mark is over 500,000 kilometers to the left. Baiziho really deserves death." A strand of fierce energy surged in Su Fang's heart. Thus, this strange combination of a devil, a cultivator, and a Dao Defiant swiftly rushed towards the mark the black disk had sensed. The shackles in the 9th hell were shocking, and the energy they consumed had to be replenished by absorbing spirit energy. So, cultivators were only barely able to fly. Moreover, they couldn't fly too high because black lightning and soulfall rain might descend at any moment from the black clouds in the sky, and there were also the monsters of the netherworld hidden within the black cloud. Resurrected experts had always been resurrected by the evil and baleful energy of death, so they weren't really affected by the ninth hell. So, the young Tao Defiant seemed to be very relaxed. Even though the devil race called themselves the death race, only the formidable experts of the devil race were truly capable of absorbing the aura of death. At this moment, even the devil that Su Fang had transformed into didn't dare absorb the aura of death. Coupled with the fact that he'd intentionally concealed his strength, it seemed to be quite strenuous for him. The bald man who'd sided with the Tao Defiant possessed formidable strength. Moreover, he wore a black treasured robe that was refined from an unknown material, and it emanated protective divine might that prevented him from being harmed by the nether-een energy and nether-een threads. So, he seemed to be in an extremely relaxed state. All along the way they didn't find any treasures, but they encountered countless dangers instead. Besides the nether-een threads that were everywhere, the soulfall rain that descended from time to time, the nether mist and soul-shatter gales that swept over from time to time, there were also some evil existences that Su Fang had never seen before. When they passed through a completely ordinary plain, an enormous bone claw suddenly stretched out from the ground, and it almost grabbed the young Tao Defiant. Fortunately, the bald man's reaction was extremely swift. He tossed out a nether lightning pearl to blast the bone claw back, and he seized the opportunity to escape. They passed through a gorge that surged with dense mist. Chapter 24:20. Because the Tao of Samsara was in chaos, the souls of living beings couldn't be reincarnated, so they were constantly devouring nether energy and other souls in the ninth underworld. They were formed from nether souls that were similar to essence souls. Apart from lightning techniques, fire techniques, and some special forbidden arts that could restrain the nether souls, no other divine abilities could kill them. Moreover, there were so many of them that it was impossible to kill them all. They were much more difficult to deal with than nether threads and soulfall rain. Su Fang, the bald middle-aged man, and the young Tao Defiant were surrounded by the nether souls and were unable to escape. In the end, the bald middle-aged Tao Defiant endured the pain in his heart and withdrew a lightning talisman, and it erupted with a shocking bolt of lightning that blasted apart the dense mist. Most of the nether souls were transformed into nothingness amidst the glow of lightning, and they were finally able to escape. True body, actually, those nether souls are excellent materials for cultivating the undying soul scripture. Su Fang's essence soul suddenly spoke in Su Fang's mind. Such nether souls are everywhere in the ninth underworld. We'll talk about them in the future. Unfortunately, I don't have a treasure that specializes in absorbing nether souls. Otherwise, it wouldn't be bad to capture more nether souls to cultivate my essence soul. Why didn't you kill the two of them? I still want to use them to find the other Tao Defiants. It's best if I can find Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. He's still useful for now. So Su Fang had joined forces with the two Tao Defiants for such a reason. About 3 months later, a commotion came from the young Tao Defiant's body as he produced a fist-sized jet-black pearl. The pearl was constantly trembling as black shadows surged madly within it. It seemed like countless monsters were hidden within it. The steadying pearl is moving. It's not far away. There should be a treasure that contains the essence of extreme een. The young man was pleasantly surprised. He used the steadying pearl's senses to swiftly fly to the right. The bald middle-aged man followed closely behind. There really is a treasure. Since I've encountered it, I won't hold back. Su Fang chuckled inwardly. He had come to the ninth underworld for Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's Violet Cloud Dharma Spirit, Nether Sand, and ninth underworld Embryo Stone. However, he naturally wouldn't hold back now that he could obtain the treasures along the way. After flying for more than 5,000 kilometers, he arrived at a desolate and deathly silent mountain range. The fixing pearl flickered even more fiercely, indicating that the treasure that contained the essence of extreme was nearby. Su Fang used his great perfection ability, and after sensing for a while, his gaze finally fell on the peak of a large mountain. The top of the mountain was bare, except for a black pool that was about 10 feet in size. That's Nether Spring. That's right, it's the Nether Spring. Before entering the 9th underworld, the evil Lord Tiandu had asked us to look for several kinds of treasures, and the Nether Spring was one of them. The young Tao Defiant and the bald Tao Defiant noticed the pool at the peak of the mountain as well, and they couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. Nether Spring? In the information about the 9 Netherland that Huang Lingyao gave Su Fang, there was also information about many extreme treasures. She asked Su Fang to find them and give them to her. She would use other spiritual items and resources to exchange with Su Fang. The Nether Spring was a treasure that Huang Lingyao was looking for. Actually, it was a type of nether water that was condensed from pure nether energy. It was a type of extreme and cold spirit water, and it was the best material to cleanse the soul of magic treasures. It surpassed all spirit water that could cleanse the soul. Huang Lingyao, the Tao Defiance, and the Tao Defiance could utilize the Nether Spring to cleanse their bodies as well. The bald Tao Defiant stretched out his hand and grabbed, and then a strand of divine might rumbled as it descended onto the peak of the mountain, causing the Nether Spring within the pool to be swept up into the air. Unexpectedly, swish, a black line shot out from the Nether Spring that was swept up into the air. It turned out that there was actually a black snake hidden within the Nether Spring. It was only 3 m long, but it had 2 pairs of wings. The black snake opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of venom, and then a strand of black chi swiftly swept out from the bald Tao Defiant's divine might. Hiss, hiss. The ethereal divine might and aura were actually corroded by the black snake's venom and transformed into nothingness. It wasn't just that, the black chi swiftly swept towards the bald Tao Defiant at a shocking speed, and it actually followed along his aura and pounced directly at his body. What terrifying venom! The expression on the bald Tao Defiant's face instantly changed. What sort of inconceivable venom was it that could even corrode the attacks of an over-god realm expert? Su Fang suddenly attacked from the side, and he suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of devilish blood. The devilish blood surged and swiftly transformed into an enormous blood python that pounced directly at the black snake. The black snake flapped its wings hastily, and it was about to flee when the blood python suddenly opened its mouth and sucked. Blood chi coiled and surged within the blood python's mouth, and it erupted with shocking devouring might as it forcefully sucked the black snake into its stomach. After that, the blood python flew back, circled around Su Fang, and then was absorbed into Su Fang's body through his palm. The blood python was Gue's transformation. Even though the black snake's venom was terrifying, it was lethal to even over-god realm experts, so it was Gue's delicacy. The bald middle-aged man and the young Tao Defiant gazed at Su Fang with eyes filled with fear. They'd originally intended to treat Su Fang as cannon fodder, but at this moment, they started to have doubts in their hearts. The bald Tao Defiant, the young man, and Su Fang each received a portion of the Nether Spring water. Su Fang stored it within a bottle treasure that was specially used to store Nether Spring water, and then he sealed it up. Over 100 years passed. Su Fang, the bald middle-aged man, and the young Tao Defiant headed towards the depths of the 9th hell. All along the way, Su Fang was able to sense any movement within an area of around 50,000 kilometers by relying on the abilities of a paragon in the 9th hell that was filled with shocking shackles. It far surpassed the bald middle-aged man, and it was even inferior to the senses of an upper-rank over-god. In this way, Su Fang was able to grasp any threats or monsters of the underworld at the first possible moment, and he avoided danger after danger in advance. The bald middle-aged man and the young man became even more fearful of Su Fang. However, they'd encountered a huge danger as well. When they passed through an area of black mist that covered an area of almost 50,000 kilometers, the life-shrinking techniques Tao Insight runes and Heaven Flow inscriptions suddenly stirred when they entered the black mist. Only then did Su Fang notice that a monster of the underworld the size of a mountain was actually hiding within the black mist, and the black mist that blotted out the sky was merely the aura of the underworld that it breathed. Fortunately, the monster was still in a deep slumber, and that was why they were able to pass through safely. Otherwise, Su Fang would have no choice but to utilize his trump card to escape. All along the way, they'd killed many monsters and souls of the underworld, and they'd obtained many treasures as well. It could be said that they'd gained a great deal. Unfortunately, the Skyfire Divine Lord that Su Fang had been anticipating hadn't appeared, and no Tao Defiant had contacted the bald middle-aged man. Instead, they were growing closer and closer to Dixuan and the others. The bald middle-aged man and the young Tao Defiant possessed Bai Ziho's life source token. Coupled with the hidden marks that Bai Ziho had left behind all along the way, it wasn't strange for them to catch up to them. They passed through a gray mountain range. The young Tao Defiant suggested, "We've expended quite a bit of energy all along the way. Why don't we find a place to recover?" There was only the aura of death in the Umbra, so they could only consume pills to replenish their energy. The bald middle-aged man naturally didn't object, and Su Fang didn't object as well. They found a cavern at random, and then the bald middle-aged Tao Defiant utilized a formation to seal up the entrance of the cavern. Try the pills refined by the Tao Defiant Pill Refinement Master. The young man withdrew a pill and gave it to the bald middle-aged man before giving one to Su Fang as well. A heaven-defying pill. The bald middle-aged man was overjoyed, and he opened his mouth and swallowed the pill. Su Fang grabbed the pill and took a look. The green pill contained a shocking aura of vitality, and it was actually on par with the Creation Saint pill. Su Fang hesitated for a moment before he said, "The devil race can consume the pills of you Tao Defiants?" The young Tao Defiant grunted, "Even cultivators can consume heaven-defying pills, so why can't devils?" The heaven-defying pill is a heaven-defying pill that only the true experts amongst the Tao Defiants possess. The evil exalt of heavenly capital only bestowed a few upon us after we entered the ninth hell. I only gave one to you because you've exerted quite a bit of effort all along the way. Otherwise, I wouldn't be willing to give it to you." Su Fang didn't hesitate any longer, and he opened his mouth and swallowed the pill. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth, and it transformed into a strand of pure vitality that swiftly swept towards his body. Unexpectedly, this state merely lasted for a moment before the medicinal strength that had fused into his body suddenly transformed into a terrifying aura of death, and the vitality that had been stimulated was actually violently devoured by the medicinal strength. Su Fang roared furiously, "This pill is poisonous." The young Tao Defiant chuckled, "Poisonous? You've underestimated the life-defying pill." "The life-defying pill? Not the heaven-defying pill?" The bald middle-aged man laughed ferociously. "The pill I consumed just now was the heaven-defying pill, and it's a great tonic for us Tao Defiants. On the other hand, the life-defying pill you consumed was specially used by the Tao Defiants to deal with human cultivators, devils, and big goblin. So long as you consume it, the vitality within your body will be reversed by the medicinal strength of the pill, and your entire body will transform into a pill and become a cultivation resource for the Tao Defiants." Su Fang trembled and gritted his teeth as he asked, "Why are all of you doing this?" The young man said coldly, "You've been given so many treasures all along the way. Moreover, you've definitely been given precious treasures by the Dongsha Mashing since you've come to the ninth hell. Coupled with your extraordinary body, it might be able to help me advance a level if it's refined into a pill. There are so many reasons, is that enough?" The bald middle-aged man continued, "The main reason is that we don't need you now. I just received a voice transmission that the evil exalt will be here soon, so what's the point of keeping you? It's better to refine you into a pill and get a share of your treasures. The young man shouted, cut the crap. Quickly contact that kid by Ziho and ask him to come over. When the evil exalt arrives, we'll have to interrogate him before we can make a move on those human cultivators. The bald middle-aged man immediately took out a life card and transmitted a voice transmission to Bai Ziho through his soul. QL11. The young man stood up and walked towards Su Fang. He was waiting for Su Fang's vitality to be sucked dry, and then he would use a forbidden technique to refine him into a pill. Su Fang's aura became even weaker, and he asked with a trembling voice, Evil Exalt Tiandu and Master Heavenly Flame are together? The young man sneered. Master Heavenly Flame is such an important figure, so of course he's with the Evil Exalt. How do you know this? You're about to die, so why are you asking so many questions? Chapter 24-21. The reversal pill was extremely formidable. It could devour the aura of life, transform it into death energy, and then be refined into medicinal pills. However, since Su Fang dared to devour the young Dao Defiance medicinal pill, he was naturally prepared. At the same time that he devoured the medicinal pill, Su Fang had silently seeped his pure Yang divine might into his flesh and blood. As soon as the medicinal strength of the reversal pill erupted, it was suppressed by the pure Yang divine might. Even though it couldn't suppress it for now, it wasn't enough to kill him. The young Dao Defiant turned pale with fright. As far as he was concerned, no matter if it was a human cultivator, the big goblin, or the devil race, so long as it was a living being, then no one would be able to survive after devouring the reversal pill. However, Su Fang was actually completely unharmed. A lamb that was about to be slaughtered had suddenly transformed into a ferocious tiger that bared its fangs, and it caused the young Dao Defiant to instantly panic. In an instant, as soon as Su Fang's icy cold and indifferent voice resounded, his body underwent a shocking transformation, and he took the form of a human cultivator. Moreover, his devilish energy instantly transformed into the divine might of the world of yin and yang, and it surged out from his body and instantly enveloped the entire cave. The young Dao Defiant and the bald middle-aged man were caught off guard, and they were shackled by Su Fang's world. A human cultivator? How could a human cultivator possibly transform into a member of the devil race? This scene had completely overturned the Dao Defiant and the bald Dao Defiant's understanding. They were terrified. A strand of shocking divine might rumbled down upon the young Dao Defiant. The young man was only at the 9th level of the Dao integration realm, so how could he resist the energy of a universe? The young Dao Defiant was blasted into pieces by the divine might that erupted like a thunderclap. The bald middle-aged man really lived up to his reputation as a lesser overgod. Earth element divine might shot out from within his body and into Su Fang's world. The image of a group of mountains appeared, and it was about to transform into reality and form a real world with the intention of breaking through Su Fang's world. However, Su Fang's world was a universe of its own, and it surpassed the world of Overgod Realm expert. At this moment, the bald middle-aged man was enveloped within his universe. So, not to mention shattering Su Fang's world, the image of mountains didn't even have the time to form a world before it shattered into pieces under the pressure of Su Fang's world. Chains condensed from the power of the yin and yang worlds flew out from the void and intertwined with each other. Those chains coiled around the bald middle-aged man and shackled him tightly. Moreover, Su Fang's Bai's Bai Hao possessed the white Bai Chen's Bai's Bai and Bai. This was because Su Fang was afraid of alerting Bai Ziho and didn't want to cause too much of a commotion. That was why he used the world god aura. Otherwise, Su Fang had many ways to suppress them. Su Fangwei shouted coldly, "You are a human cultivator, yet you are willing to submit to the resurrected experts and become their puppet. You deserve to die." "I deserve to die." The bald middle-aged man roared furiously with displeasure. We've been isolated by the sky barrier, and that's equivalent to being abandoned. We've lost all support. What else can we do besides side with the powerful Tao Defiance and devils? Su Fang fell silent for a moment and then he said coldly, "It really is unfair for all of you to be isolated on the other side of the River of Two Realms. However, that's absolutely not a reason for you to defy the Tao Defiance. I, Su Fang, have encountered more injustice than anyone else in my entire life. I'll ceaselessly fight against it, but I'll absolutely not give up." Su Fang? You're the #1 genius of the human race, Su Fang? The bald middle-aged man was very shocked. Su Fang's name was known to almost everyone in the universe. The bald middle-aged man was a peerless master god, so he naturally knew about Su Fang. Then he laughed maniacally. "Lord Evil Dominator Tiandu has already arrived at the 9 underworlds, and he'll be here soon. You'll definitely not be able to escape his suppression. I can die without regrets at the hands of Su Fang, and the #1 genius of the human race, Su Fang, will die because of me. I've profited greatly, ha ha ha." Su Fang looked at the Tao Defiant with pity in his eyes. "Not only will I not die, but I'll also use you and Bai Ziho as bait to kill Evil Dominator Tiandu and capture Heavenly Fire Divine Lord." You? You actually want to kill Lord Evil Dominator? You're only at the Tao integration realm. It's already heaven-defying for you to shackle me. You still want to kill Evil Dominator Tiandu? The bald Tao Defiant looked at Su Fang as if he was looking at a lunatic. "Why am I talking so much nonsense with you? You won't be able to see my second primordial spirit anyway." The black mark that Su Fang's second primordial spirit resided in turned into a black Xian Guang and shot out. It hit the bald Tao Defiant's head with a bang, and a wave of void trembled. It forcefully and domineeringly shattered the Divine Aperture's defense and entered the bald Tao Defiant's Divine Aperture. The bald Tao Defiant's expression changed incessantly while he struggled with pain. In less than the time for an incense stick to burn, he stopped struggling, and then he spoke in an icy cold voice. "This exalt has already seized his soul core. Why didn't I just kill him? Wouldn't that be more straightforward? This person's strength is not bad, but it's impossible to subdue him. I can only control him with Night Demon's divine ability. This way I'll have another good puppet expert. I can also devour his heart and absorb his life essence to improve the strength of my primordial spirit. For an overgod with extraordinary strength to end up like this, he only has himself to blame." Jian Chen sighed. Su Fang sighed, and then he fell into silence. The guardian of the mountain had isolated the myriad of worlds, countless divine worlds, and countless gods had fallen into the control of the revived experts, devil race, and other evil forces. There were only 2 outcomes for these people. They could either be devoured or surrender and become puppets of the Tao Defiant. If I don't possess sufficient strength, then I'll be abandoned by the Yuan Tiangong just like these Tao Defiants and become a puppet at the mercy of others. There's less than 100,000 years left. No matter if I succeed or fail, I won't be able to escape the suppression of the supreme existences of the imperial people. At that time, I might suffer an even more miserable fate than these Tao Defiants. Strength. No matter when it is, strength is the king. No matter what, I'll take my fate into my own hands and absolutely won't suffer the same fate as these Tao Defiants. A resolute expression flashed through Su Fang's eyes while a shapeless, imposing aura of defiance rumbled out from him. After around 6 hours of waiting in the cave, Su Fang, who was seated cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. "Bai Ziho, you really have come." The bald middle-aged man who sat cross-legged by Su Fang's side withdrew Su Fang from his palm. A short while later, Bai Ziho's voice resounded from outside the barrier. "Open the barrier right now." The bald middle-aged man formed a seal, and the barrier automatically opened up to form a door before Bai Ziho's figure flashed in. At this moment, the smile on Bai Ziho's face had vanished without a trace, and it was replaced by a gloomy and domineering expression. Divine light swept through the cave as he shouted in a domineering manner. "Why is it only you, the Tao Defiant puppet? Wasn't there another Lord Tao Defiant? When will the Lord Evil Exalt arrive?" The bald middle-aged man glanced indifferently at Bai Ziho and said, "Are you a Tao Defiant? Or a Tao Defiant cultivator?" Bai Ziho looked down at the bald middle-aged man with disdain. Although I'm a Tao Defiant like you, the Lord Evil Exalt personally promised that as long as I complete this mission and capture the Big Goblin, Yuanli Mo Tiangong and Dixuan, he'll take me as his disciple. How can I be the same as a puppet like you? You'll be the same soon. The bald middle-aged man chuckled like a ferocious beast that had suddenly bared its fangs. Bai Ziho instantly became vigilant. Who would have thought that at this moment, a black profound light would shoot out from the back of his head? The illusory yet incomparably powerful divine might of the primordial spirit crushed his divine aperture's defenses like Mount Tai. It was as if it could kill its way into his divine aperture without any obstruction. Since Bai Ziho could be listed on the merit list of the Sky Beacon God World, his strength was naturally extraordinary. He was far stronger than the bald middle-aged man. However, facing the second origin spirit that could fight against the origin spirit of an Emperor Realm expert, he could only be crushed and devoured. He only lasted for half an hour longer than the bald middle-aged man before his origin spirit was devoured by the second origin spirit using the Charm God Soul Absorbing Seal. Then, the second origin spirit condensed a black imprint and separated a wisp of origin spirit consciousness to reside in his divine aperture. Just like the bald middle-aged man, it became a puppet controlled by Su Fang. Buzz. As soon as Su Fang came out of the bald middle-aged man's body, a commotion came from the depths of his body. QL11 It was the green nether pearl that Dixuan had given to Su Fang. It was specially used for communication in the 9 underworld. Dixuan's voice came from the green nether pearl. "Great Elder Yuanli, you're nearby?" "Yes." "Have you found any nether sand?" "All these years we've been in the material plane on the surface of the 9 underworlds, but we haven't found the entrance to the deeper planes. The 9 underworlds is too big. Bai Ziho has just left, so the experts of the Tao-defying Union, or even evil dominator Tian Du and Dongsha Mashing might be coming soon. Great Elder Yuanli, you must be extra careful." Bai Ziho. Bai Ziho has been suppressed by this senior. This senior wants to use him as bait to capture the heavenly flames. If possible, I want to kill evil dominator Tian Du. Kill evil dominator Tian Du. Dixuan was also shocked by Su Fang's bold plan. "Great Elder Yuanli, are you confident? Do you need our help?" "I'm about 50% confident. Even if I fail, it doesn't matter. Don't forget, this senior has the Universe River Chariot. I don't need your help. You should continue to search for nether sand. Great Elder Yuanli, you must be careful. Next, Chu Bingyan, Qiangang, Eli, and Qi Mian will split up and search. Once we have any news, we'll contact Great Elder Yuanli." After ending the conversation with Dixuan, Su Fang thought for a moment. Then, he put Bai Ziho and the bald old man into his inner world, and quickly left the cave. After taking out the Universe River Chariot and activating it, Su Fang arrived outside the black fog that covered an area of 100,000 li in a flash. Then, Su Fang put away the Universe River Chariot and used the demon transformation art again to turn into the big goblin Yuanli. At the same time, he used the heavenly secret life shrinking art to conceal his presence. Then, he carefully flew into the depths of the black fog. Chapter 24-22. Su Fang carefully went deep into the black mist. Since he wanted to use the nether monster in the black mist to deal with evil dominator Tian Du, Su Fang naturally wanted to know what kind of nether monster it was. He wanted to know if it had the strength to kill evil dominator Tian Du after 3 days, Su Fang finally flew out of the black mist. I wonder what kind of nether monster it is. Seems like it won't be a problem to use it to entertain evil dominator Tiandu. Su Fang's eyes were filled with fear. Even the nether monster seemed to be frightened. After flying far away, he let Bai Ziho out and sent a thought to him, ordering him to send a message to evil dominator Tiandu. Lord Evil Dominator, Big Goblin Yuan Li and Dixuan have killed 2 of your subordinate. They are preparing to escape. Bai Ziho took out a talisman that emitted a strong aura of death. He sent a message to evil dominator Tiandu after a while. Evil dominator Tiandu's voice came from the talisman? Try to stall them first. My main body will be there soon. Bai Ziho anxiously said, Lord Evil Dominator, be quick. They seem to have discovered this little one. Ah, Yuan Li, how dare you kill me? Su Fang suddenly released a 9 suns divine fire, enveloping the talisman and burning it to ashes. Then Su Fang kept Bai Ziho into his inner world and used his great perfection realm ability. Together with the Heaven's Secret Life shrinking technique, he sent out his sensing force. About 2 hours later, from the left, Su Fang sensed a familiar aura flying towards him at an astonishing speed. It was Evil Dominator Tiandu. In the 9 underworlds, Evil Dominator Tiandu was shackled and could only fly. However, his flying speed was as fast as lightning. It would take him at most a dozen breaths to reach here. Evil Dominator Tiandu, you really came? You will be the first Emperor Venerable Expert I kill. Su Fang revealed a domineering smile. Wang. Following that, the Destiny Dao text from the Heaven's Secret Life shrinking technique flickered rapidly and finally turned into the image of Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord is indeed with Evil Dominator Tiandu. QL11 Su Fang was overjoyed. His eyes lit up. As long as he captured Heavenly Fire Divine Lord, he would get his purple Qi Law Spirit. At that time, what kind of transformation would Su Fang's purple Qi Law Spirit undergo? How shocking would his karmic luck reach? Whoosh! Demonic Qi gushed out from Su Fang's body and flew towards Tiandu Evil Dominator. About 10 breath. Evil Dominator Tiandu's great perfection realm ability was due. Evil Dominator Tiandu, to escape, to die to escape to be Dao is to die of to Tian to heaven. To me. Evil Dominator Tiandu's cold voice came from behind. While his voice was still echoing, he was already half the distance between him and Su Fang. Su Fang gritted his teeth and took out the evil god flag. He burned his demon chi and his speed doubled. You won't be in the returning ruins heaven this time? Since you're so lucky, just surrender obediently. Seeing that you've given me the Infinity Wheel, a supreme divine creation artifact, this venerable will let you die a quick death. Evil Dominator Tiandu's voice was filled with evil and greed. A divine aura descended and shrouded the space within 100,000 li radius. Just as Evil Dominator Tiandu's divine aura was about to materialize into a world, Su Fang waved the evil god flag in his hand. Nearly 100,000 resurrected experts swept out along with a monstrous aura of death. Boom! Boom! The 100,000 resurrected experts exploded, creating a shocking impact that broke a hole in Evil Dominator Tiandu's divine aura. Su Fang used the Divine Arm's Spirit Monkey's movement technique. He burned his demon chi again and flew out of the hole. Then he waved his hand and hundreds of runes rolled out. When all of them were activated, an earth-shattering explosion occurred. The black clouds in the sky rolled wildly and the Een underworld chi in the space also shook violently. Taking advantage of this moment to catch his breath, Su Fang flew like a meteor into the black clouds. So, Evil Dominator Tiandu arrived in an instant, but he stopped outside the black cloud. What a dense Een underworld chi! There is a powerful nether monster hibernating here, as expected of the supreme Evil Dominator who was comparable to an Emperor Realm expert. He could see that there was a powerful nether monster hiding in the black clouds. This made Evil Dominator Tian-du wary. Then Evil Dominator Tian-du released his sensing ability, but he could not see what was hiding in the depths of the black clouds. This big goblin Yuan Li, is he planning to use this nether monster to deal with me? Evil Dominator Tian-du felt that something was amiss and hesitated. Lord Evil Dominator, did you catch that Emo Tiangong? Heavenly Fire Divine Lord rushed over under the protection of a dozen Dao Defiants. Evil Dominator Tian-du shook his head and said, "The big goblin Yuan Li entered the black clouds and did not see any other human cultivators. I suspect that this is a trap set by Yuan Li." "A trap?" Heavenly Fire Divine Lord snorted. "How can a mere big goblin be so intelligent?" Evil Dominator Tian-du's eyes flashed coldly. "This demon killed Dongsha Moshing's clone and stole my evil god flag. And he is in the returning ruins heaven? He broke through the encirclement of 1,000,000 experts and escaped from me and Dongsha Moshing. How dare you look down on him? Are you mocking me?" Heavenly Fire Divine Lord trembled and said, "I dare not." Evil Dominator Tian-du snorted. "The big goblin Yuan Li and those human cultivators are not difficult to catch. If you can get the secret technique to make nether sand from that human treasure refiner and you cannot fuse it into the saint artifact, don't blame me for being ruthless. I will do my best." Evil Dominator Tian-du continued, "Why haven't you cultivated the Descendant Life Reversal Scripture that the Alliance Master gave you? Do you still have some fantasies about human cultivators?" Heavenly Fire Divine Lord quickly knelt down. The Descendant Life Reversal Scripture is the supreme great Tao that the supreme evil God gave to all living beings. After cultivating it, one can live forever. Which cultivator would not want it? But I cultivate the Heavenly Fire Tao. If I go against the Tao, I will not be able to use the Saint Artifact. Humph, I think you still want to go back to Yuan Tiangong? Evil Dominator Tian-du sneered, which made Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's hair stand on end. Descendant Life Reversal Scripture. It was the supreme evil god's great Tao scripture that the Tao Defiance cultivated. It was taught by the evil god's will to the Alliance Master of the Tao Defiance. It was regarded as a sacred scripture by the Tao Defiant. Only the higher-ups of the Tao Defiance could cultivate it. The other Tao Defiants could only cultivate a little. When human cultivators cultivated the Descendant Life Reversal Scripture, they could absorb the power of evil yang to quickly increase their cultivation. But from then on, they would completely betray the heavenly Tao and become a Tao Defiant. And after cultivating the Descendant Life Reversal Scripture, they would be controlled by the will of the evil god. Although they would still have self-awareness, they would be no different from a puppet controlled by someone. Su Fang entered the black cloud and waited for several hours, but Evil Dominator Tian-du did not come after him. Evil Dominator Tian-du is so cunning. He did not fall for it? This is going to be troublesome. Su Fang frowned. Looks like I have to take a risk. After thinking for a while, Su Fang's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He released his demonic qi and rushed into the depths of the black cloud. On the ground, there was a mountain that was hundreds of meters tall. The terrifying black cloud that covered hundreds of thousands of miles was spurting out from a cave in the mountain. After sensing it carefully, he realized that it was not a mountain. It was a huge head covered in white hair. There were black horns that looked like cow horns on its head. 2 blood-red fangs were half exposed. Its face was ferocious and terrifying. It was 10 times uglier than the devil race. Su Fang could not sense any life from this monster. It was pure Een Nether Chi. Clearly, it was a nether monster that was born from the Een Nether Chi. As if it sensed Su Fang's demonic chi, the head opened its eyes slightly, revealing gray pupils. But a thick black cloud came out of its nostrils. Then the eyes slowly closed. Clearly, this nether monster treated Su Fang as an ant. It did not care about him at all. Su Fang waved his hand and shot out hundreds of rune talismans. All of them were extremely powerful. Among them, there were even a few Thunder Rune talismans. After Su Fong detonated them, they caused an earth-shaking explosion and shook the thick black clouds violently. At the moment when the talismans were detonated, Su Fong immediately used the life-shrinking technique. He concealed his aura and flew out of the black cloud. Evil Dominator Tian Du sensed the commotion inside the black cloud. He frowned. Damn it. That big goblin Yuan Li is attacking that nether monster. Is he not afraid of death? Roar. An earth-shaking roar came from the black cloud. The black cloud that covered hundreds of thousands of miles disappeared in an instant. The sound waves swept out in all directions. It also contained a terrifying primordial spirit divine power. The impact caused Evil Dominator Tian Du to stagger. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord and the other Tao Defiance could not control their bodies. They were swept far away like straws in the wind. On the dark ground, the ugly and huge head appeared. Dark Guard. Evil Dominator Tian Du's expression changed. Legend has it that the Dark Guard was a powerful nether monster that guarded the reincarnation Tao. Although it was weaker than the legendary Dark Dominator, in the Nine Nether, a Dark Guard could kill an Emperor Realm expert. Where did Big Goblin Yuan Li go? Did the Dark Guard devour him? Evil Dominator Tian Du was not surprised when he did not see Su Fong. The Dark Guard also did not notice Su Fong. When he saw Evil Dominator Tian Du, who was hundreds of thousands of miles away, he found a place to vent his anger. After another roar, a black cloud appeared above Evil Dominator Tian Du. It quickly condensed into a huge head. It opened its mouth and bit at Evil Dominator Tian Du. It felt like it was going to swallow the entire Nine Nether. That damned big goblin Yuan Li. You better not die. Otherwise, I will make you regret being born. Evil Dominator Tian Du's eyes were burning with flames. He had no choice but to engage in an earth-shattering battle with the Dark Guard. You two can fight slowly. It is best if both of you are injured. I have no time to accompany you. It is time to capture Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Chapter 24-23. Su Fong only stopped when he was about 5,000 kilometers away from Heavenly Fire Divine Lord and the Tao Defiant. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord and the Tao Defiance were focused on the battle between Evil Dominator Tian Du and Netherguard. They did not notice that a fatal threat had arrived. Those Tao Defiants are all experts. One of them is comparable to a peak overgod, while the others are superior and middle-rank overgods. Defeating them is easy, but capturing Heavenly Fire Divine Lord alive will be difficult. After some thought, Su Fong immediately released Bai Ziho and the bald middle-aged man. Go over there and try to approach Heavenly Fire Divine Lord and attract their attention. Yes. Bai Ziho and the bald Tao Defiant were obedient slaves. They would not frown even if Su Fong ordered them to die. They immediately flew towards Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Then, Su Fong released Sky Gazing, Shui 7 ZD Zheng, Pai Shu ZD, Xiao Yao Ing Dagger, ZD. When they first entered the 9 underworlds, the Kirin had sustained serious injuries. But after devouring the blood crystals in the black-yellow 6 Daos Pagoda over the years, not only had it recovered to its peak state, it had even improved significantly. Thus, it was only natural for it to be completely loyal to Su Fong. Qilin Fiend and Sky Gazing? Jianxiang Rong Yumi Mu? Come here? Yu Yi Xian Fu He Yu? Yu Yi Xian? Yu Yi Xing Yu Kao Tao Yu Yi Xian? After some thought, Su Fong released Shroud's clone. Shroud's clone was a puppet that Su Fong had replicated with the primordial chaos sacred mirror using the 4 symbols transformation. It did not have any self-awareness and was like a living dead. It exuded a cold aura of death. As soon as he was released by Su Fong, his originally lifeless eyes actually lit up. His entire aura seemed to have fused with the 9 serenities, becoming even more ethereal, as if he was born to belong to this world. Nether is indeed a transcendent realm master. He was once the supreme ruler of the 10 Netherlands. just a clone of the origin sacred mirror, has the strength of an Emperor Realm Master. His strength will definitely become even stronger in the 9 Netherlands, but we still need to find the 9 Nether Embryo Stone as soon as possible. Su Fang was shocked when he sensed the aura of Shroud's clone. Then, Su Fang transmitted a thought to Netherworld's clone, ordering it to blend into the void, guarding against evil dominator Tiandu and Netherguard who might come at any time. After making thorough preparations, Su Fang leisurely flew towards Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord and the Tao Defiance were paying full attention to the battle between evil dominator Tiandu and Netherguard. Coupled with the suppression of their sensory abilities in the 9th Underworld, Heavenly Fire Divine Lord only noticed Bai Ziho and the bald Tao Defiant when they were nearly 500 kilometers away. "Weren't you killed by the big goblin Yuanli? And you, Bai Ziho, how did you escape from the big goblin Yuanli and those human cultivators?" Heavenly Fire Divine Lord was a cunning old fox. He immediately shouted warily when he saw Bai Ziho and the bald middle-aged man. The attention of all the Tao Defiance was drawn over. "Lord Heavenly Fire, this is what happened," Bai Ziho said with a chuckle. Before he could finish, Heavenly Fire Divine Lord suddenly shouted coldly, "These two are acting suspiciously. Shackle them." The peak over God Tao Defiant unleashed a divine aura that instantly enveloped Bai Ziho and the bald middle-aged man, turning them into a world of drifting dark clouds. Shackles and chains surged out from the world and tightly shackled them. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord was very surprised that he could shackle them so easily. But the next moment, his expression changed. "Oh no, there's an ambush!" One after another, the big goblin charged out from every direction while their attention was diverted. In the blink of an eye, they were hundreds of kilometers away. To a over-god peerless expert, a distance of hundreds of millions of kilometers was just a matter of seconds. Although they were shackled in the 9th Underworld, preventing them from fusing with the heavenly Tao and teleporting or tearing through space, a distance of a few hundred kilometers could be covered in less than a breath for the big goblin who was at the over-god level. Boom! 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 The monstrous demonic chi transformed into demonic flames that covered the sky and swept over like a tornado. It was too horrifying. Under this round of attacks, 3 powerful resurrected powerhouses were killed. Especially Wang Tian, Go, Bad Lanqua Fei, Yu, Material Potential, Yu Huang, Peng Mu Yu, invading Shanmi Na Xian Ling Guangou Fu Jieqian Lan Sheng. After that, it rapidly condensed into a huge golden ring. As it suddenly shrank, the world of the Tao Defiance shattered layer by layer. The shackles on Bai Ziho and the bald middle-aged man shattered as well. The golden ring shrank rapidly and trapped the Tao Defiant. As it buzzed and trembled, a shocking force of shackles surged out from the surroundings, and it actually trapped the Tao Defiant, who was also a peak over god. Although it failed to trap him, he was unable to use any abilities at all. "Thank you, over god, for the demon artifact." The golden ring had been given to Wang Tian by Su Fang. Menacing Qi? Yu? Menacing Qi? Gu Huang? Theta Gu? Meng? Menacing Qi? Beach Qi? Oh. If I follow Master, I'll have treasures, resources, and even the essence blood of a great saint of the demon race. I'll follow Master even if you beat me to death. Ah. The Qilin laughed wildly and spat out a pillar of water, shattering the body of a Tao Defiant. The other big goblin charged over with great vigor, engaging in an intense battle against the Tao Defiance. It could not be called a battle. Instead, it was a one-sided slaughter. Over 1,000 big goblins were attacking over a dozen Tao Defiant. If that was not a slaughter, then what was? Bai Ziho and the bald, middle-aged man were affected by the big goblin's attacks as well. They were quite injured, but they ignored their injuries and charged towards Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. The cunning Heavenly Fire Divine Lord saw that the situation was bad, so he unleashed his might. He burned with flames and swept out with a swish. The terrifying might of the flames forced back the big goblin, and he immediately fled into the big goblin's encirclement. However, before he could even breathe a sigh of relief, a black silhouette shot towards him like a bolt of lightning. Boundless demonic chi swept across the area, carrying with it a terrifying aura that seemed capable of destroying the heavens and the earth. The heavenly fire around him collapsed layer by layer. Yuan Li, how dare you scheme against Lord Heavenly Capital's heretical Empyrean Lord? Heavenly Fire Divine Lord was alarmed. He finally realized that he had fallen into Su Fang's trap. Just as he was about to use his might of the flames to transform into a world of flames to attack Su Fang, a huge commotion suddenly erupted from his body. Purple gas Dharma spirit? How can a purple gas Dharma spirit cause such a commotion? Even if it's a peerless treasure, it's impossible for my purple gas Dharma spirit to cause such a commotion. Unless you also have a purple gas Dharma spirit. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord was stunned by this discovery. Following that, he bellowed coldly, "Who are you? Why do you have a purple gas Dharma spirit? Once I suppress you, you will naturally know who I am." Su Fang gave a cold and embarrassed smile as he unleashed his prodigious divine destruction fist. Under Su Fang's ferocious attacks, Heavenly Fire Divine Lord did not even have the chance to catch his breath after using his might to condense a world. All he could do was retreat. Heavens? What a waste! You're taking a stand? What's wrong with you? 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 See? What's wrong with you? Heavenly Fire Divine Lord fell into despair as he immediately conjured a crimson cauldron. It floated above his head as it released a stunning defensive barrier that firmly protected him within. At the same time, he shouted loudly, "Lord Heretical Dominator, save me!" Su Fang's consecutive strikes of the prodigious divine destruction fist only caused the barrier released by the cauldron to tremble. He was unable to break through it. Su Fang's brows furrowed inwardly. If evil Dominator Heavenly Capital were to rush over, I would have no choice but to fight him head-on. Although I'm not afraid, if Heavenly Fire Divine Lord were to escape, all my efforts would be for naught. Su Fang immediately took out the heretical god flag as a ghastly head rapidly appeared on it. It was condensing a powerful strike that exceeded that of a lord. Evil Dominator Heavenly Capital, who was in battle with Netherguard, had long sensed the commotion. However, he was entangled with Netherguard and was confident in the strength of his subordinates. Hence, he did not pay much attention to it at first. Who knew that in less than half an hour, more than a dozen Lord experts, including a peak Lord expert, had been defeated in such a short period of time. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's strength was no weaker than an ordinary peak Lord expert. What infuriated Evil Dominator Heavenly Capital even more was that the one who had attacked him was the big goblin Yuan Li whom he had been pursuing. He had set up such a trap for Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord was a very important figure in the Tao Defiance Alliance. If he were to be captured, even Evil Dominator Heavenly Capital would be severely punished. Big Goblin Yuan Li, I'm going to skin you alive. Evil Dominator Heavenly Capital let out a furious roar. His voice reverberated in all directions as the entire abyss trembled. The Yin-Hell Chi between heaven and earth surged as it became chaotic. When he clashed with Netherguard, Evil Dominator Heavenly Capital did not use his full strength. He gave off a holy aura as he attacked calmly. At this moment, his aura changed drastically. His face became ferocious like an evil god. A power that could reverse life and death erupted, shattering the giant ghost head that Netherguard had conjured. Evil Dominator Heavenly Capital then turned around to assist Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Netherguard on the ground was not a living being, but he had his own consciousness. He felt an instinctive fear of Evil Dominator Heavenly Capital's strength. After a moment of hesitation, he gave up on pursuing and slowly closed his eyes. Suddenly, kill! A deep, cold, and extremely domineering roar came from the void. The Netherguard's eyes suddenly opened, and there was actually a look of terror in his deep eyes. Roar! Netherguard let out an earth-shaking roar. There was a loud cracking sound from the ground, as two large white-haired hands reached out from the depths of the ground and pressed against the ground. Boom! 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 The ground shook as Netherguard's mountain-like head quickly emerged from the ground. Then, his shoulders, body, and finally his two legs. In an instant, a huge monster that was thousands of feet tall appeared in the world. What is that hidden in the void? How can it command Netherguard? Chapter 24:24. Netherguards were powerful existences that guarded the Samsara Tao. Now that Samsara had collapsed and the 9 netherworlds had shattered, there weren't many Netherguards left. However, they were still extremely powerful. What sort of astoundingly powerful existence could command Netherguards? It had to be a peerless mighty figure from the 9 netherworlds. Evil Dominator Tian Du guessed that it was at least an underworld supremacy. If this was the natural world, Evil Dominator Tian Du naturally wouldn't place Netherguards in his eyes. He wasn't even afraid of underworld supremacy expert. However, he was in the 9 netherworlds, the territory of an underworld supremacy. How could he not be afraid? I'm Evil Dominator Tian Du. Which underworld supremacy are you? Please show yourself. Evil Dominator Tian Du shouted at the dark void. However, what answered him was Netherguard's frenzied attacks. He saw Netherguard spit out a gust of netherworld aura that rapidly transformed into a black mountain peak that came crashing down on him. Then, Netherguard strode forward like a moving mountain. He grabbed with his right arm as the void within a 5,000-kilometer radius suddenly contracted, transforming into a formless hand that grabbed at him. Legend has it that the 9 netherworlds has a total of 9 underworld supremacies. They are also the 9 rulers of the 9 netherworld. Regardless of which underworld supremacy you are, with the 9 netherworlds shattered and the Samsara Tao crumbling, the 9 netherworlds has already vanished into the annals of history. All that's left is a dilapidated space-time plane. If you dare oppose me, I'll destroy this dilapidated 9 netherworlds and wipe you out completely. Evil Dominator Tian Du released his divine might as he transformed into a terrifying world where life and death reversed samsara as he threatened loudly. Although his strength was much stronger than Netherguard's, he was unable to extricate himself from Netherguard's relentless attacks. And on the other side, the heretical god flag had finished accumulating strength as it blasted out a torrential aura of death. As it was unable to trigger the aura of death, its strength wasn't as terrifying as it was in the outside world. However, it still had strength that exceeded that of a lord. Boom! Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's enchantment with the cauldron shattered. The cauldron also cracked under the terrifying might of the aura of death. It lasted for an instant before shattering into pieces. The defense formed by the heavenly fire around Heavenly Fire Divine Lord crumbled from the impact, revealing his divine body. He was tumbling in the murderous aura, and his divine body's defenses were shattered as well. He was in a severely injured state. The evil god flag's attack caused the surrounding underworld energy to tremble violently. The power of the attack soared into the sky and created a huge hole in the dark clouds in the sky, revealing the planar barrier that flashed with multicolored light deep within. Chi. Su Fang's figure flashed as he used his movement technique to instantly appear in front of Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. As though he was grabbing a chicken, he shackled him. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord, I've missed you so much. After so many years, I've finally caught you today. Having finally captured Heavenly Fire Divine Lord, it meant that the purple cloud's Dharma spirit was in his hands. Su Fang could not help but laugh in delight. You perverted big goblin. I would rather die than submit to you. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord clearly misunderstood. He was already in a severely injured state, and now, he was scared out of his wits by Su Fang's words. He could not help but shudder when he thought of the tragic and filthy scene of being ravaged by a big goblin. His head tilted to the side as he fainted. Heavens? Hemorrhoids? Subduing the mule? Hair-catching emblems? Malaria? I never expected Master to have such a fetish. It's too terrifying, but that human cultivator looks like a rotten old man. Master's taste is indeed a little strange. What if one day Master's interests change? He no longer likes humans but big goblin? We will be in trouble. Heavens? Squandering one's post to pay for one's beard? Is it difficult to overturn one's head? Blasphemy? Cgn? Su Fong first shackled Heavenly Fire Divine Lord and kept him in the internal space of the Xian Wang Six Paths Pagoda. He did not have time to deal with him for the time being. After keeping all the big goblin in the Xian Wang Six Paths Pagoda, he put away the heretical god flag and carefully flew towards the place where evil dominator Tian Du and Netherguard were fighting. Of course, he was not there to watch the show. He wanted to wait until evil dominator Tian Du and Netherguard were both injured before he killed evil dominator Tian Du. Being hunted by an expert in the Nine Nether was not an easy task. If he could kill Tian Du and get rid of any future problems, it would naturally be best. Furthermore, he could obtain amazing providence. In addition, Su Fong hoped to obtain the life and death interdependence and reversal forbidden art from evil dominator Tian Du. From it, he could comprehend the method to come back from the dead. Heavenly Fire has been captured by Yuan Li. Evil dominator Tian Du had already sensed that all the experts under his command had been killed and Heavenly Fire Divine Lord had been suppressed by Su Fong. He calmed down instead. Seeing that Su Fong had no intention of leaving and was planning to reap the benefits, evil dominator Tian Du was enraged. That Yuan Li not only wants to capture Heavenly Fire Divine Lord, but also wants to kill me? A mere big goblin dares to be so arrogant. I swear I will capture you and torture you for eternity. Evil dominator Tian Du no longer hid anything and unleashed his full strength in anger. Boom! His physical body rapidly turned into a state of nothingness as an aura swept out and covered the endless space. Netherguard and Su Fong, who was about 100,000 miles away, were all enveloped by the divine aura before they were sucked into it. In an instant, QL11 Su Fong felt the space-time change as though he had come to another universe. On the vast land there were endless mountain ranges, dense forests, and winding rivers. It was a scene of exuberant vitality. In the sky, the galaxy was vast and the stars were moving. It was a completely different universe. The energy, laws, and even the heavenly way were completely different from the universe. Evil dominator Tian Du is also going all out. Su Fongda was shocked as his expression turned solemn. Over-God experts had their own worlds. However, when they were fighting with others, they would not easily use their own worlds to merge with the heavenly way. Instead, they would project the divine aura of their inner worlds into the universe to form a world for defense or attack. That was because once the world collapsed, it would mean that the Over-God expert would be severely injured even if they did not die. Over-God experts would transform their worlds into the universe and constantly seek the path of transcendence. They would not easily use their inner worlds to fight with others. Once their inner worlds collapsed, their realms would fall and they might even die. Evil dominator Tian Du had merged with his own world to fight with Su Fong and Netherguard. Not only was he angered by Su Fong, but he also had other intentions. That was Mystery's doppelganger. Mystery's doppelganger, who was originally hiding in the void, could no longer hide and was drawn into evil dominator Tian Du's world. This was evil dominator Tian Du's true intention. This lord would like to see which underworld dominator dares to be this lord's enemy. Evil dominator Tian Du's voice that was filled with the majesty of the heavenly way reverberated between heaven and earth. Shroud's clone stood in midair while his entire body emanated an icy cold and deathly silence, and he didn't speak a single word like a god of death. You are the son of the heavenly master, the lord of samsara. Evil dominator Tian Du recognized Mystery's true identity, and his voice was filled with panic and fear. Mystery was the son of the heavenly master, the supreme ruler of death in the 10 underworlds. He was also the lord of samsara, who ruled over the path of samsara. Moreover, he was a supreme existence that had transcended the heavenly way. How could evil dominator Tian Du not be afraid? No, you are not the ruler of the 10 underworlds. You are just his doppelganger. Evil dominator Tian Du suddenly realized that something was wrong. Then he suddenly realized. Yuan Li, you are definitely not the big goblin Yuan Li. Su Fang has a doppelganger of the ruler of the 10 underworlds beside him. You are Su Fang. Evil dominator Tian Du was an evil dominator who was comparable to the supreme ruler after all, and Su Fang was in his world now. No matter how powerful the demon shape-shifting art was, it could not fool evil dominator Tian Du. Evil dominator Tian Du, your eyesight is not bad. Su Fang smiled coldly and embarrassedly. His body quickly underwent a shocking transformation and turned into a human form. Su Fang, you are indeed Su Fang. Evil Lord Tian Du was shocked, surprised, and greedy at the same time. Everyone thought that you were in seclusion in Primordius' heavenly palace, preparing to enter the Empyrean mountain. I never imagined that you would be so bold as to enter the battlefield of the 2 realms and even come to the 9 Netherlands. Ha ha! My luck is so heaven-defying. I actually managed to capture Su Fang. Hand over the Origin's sacred mirror. Evil dominator Tian Du was also overwhelmed with joy. It could be said that he was blessed by the heavens. Su Fang asked curiously, "How do you know that the Origin's sacred mirror is in my hands?" "I am very curious. Not only you, the demon race and the resurrected experts all seem to know that the Origin's sacred mirror is in my hand." During the so-called marriage ceremony in the Yuan Tiangong, Su Fang had no choice but to take out the Origin's sacred mirror to force the supreme ruler of the imperial people to compromise. Later on, the Mountain Guardian used a supreme divine ability to erase all information about the Origin's sacred mirror from everyone present to prevent the news from being leaked. Who knew later, both the Tao Defiance and the demon race knew that the Origin's sacred mirror was in Su Fang's hands. The supreme evil god has already taken over the heavenly Tao. His will is everywhere. The Mountain Guardian can erase the memories of the gods, but can he erase the will of the evil god? Su Fang, after I kill you, the Origin's sacred mirror, the prison-suppressing codex, the heaven supervisor token, and the universe chariot will all belong to me. Boom. Evil dominator Tian Du's proud and surprised voice reverberated in the world. An aura that went from life to death and from prosperity to decline suddenly exploded in the world. In the sky, the stars that were originally emitting resplendent light suddenly dimmed. Then, they turned into meteors, burning with sparks as they descended towards Su Fang, Nethergard, and the clone of Nethergard. On the ground, all signs of life rapidly vanished. The forests withered, the rivers dried up, and the endless mountain range instantly transformed into enormous tombs. The aura of death and evil filled the world. In an instant, the universe that was full of life turned into a world of death. The aura of death and evil rose from the ground. Together with the falling stars in the sky, it formed a terrifying scene of destruction. Chapter 24-25. Life Form. Su Fang immediately activated the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda and entered its natal state. Tut tut tut. Fused with hundreds of thousands of big goblin, including Wangtian? Shui 7Z Di Zhong Nan tossing dice and dice? Tu Zhua Kuxian Mu Zhijia? Alpha. Looking at the armor? Green? Waves? Sluggish? Long? What? Fu? Naga Nagasu Fang's power quickly surpassed the Tao integration stage and continued to climb. In such a state, Su Fang borrowed the power of the Origin Sacred Mirror to cast the Great Reincarnation Art, disintegrating, absorbing, and replicating Tiandu Evil Lord's attack before unleashing it again. Boom! Boom! At this time, Su Fang was like a large mirror. Under the divine power of the Great Samsara technique, any attack would be given a taste of their own medicine, and would be reincarnated into heaven and earth without leaving a trace behind. The stars shattered, the earth cracked, and the world shook violently. However, Su Fang was not an Emperor Realm Master at this time, so the power of the Great Reincarnation technique was constantly being suppressed. His divine body could not bear the astonishing burden and was constantly shattering. Roar, roar, roar! The Netherguard let out an earth-shattering roar. With its powerful body, it smashed the stars falling from the sky, shattering the power of death and destruction that swept over. Shroud's clone was even more shocking. The cold aura it emitted turned into a terrifying underworld river, spiraling and surging, shattering evil Lord Tiandu's world aura. Even the world itself was shattered layer by layer. What was even more terrifying was that Netherworld's attack also drew upon the power of the 9 underworlds, forming an external pressure that combined with Netherworld's attack, causing Tiandu's world to crumble even faster. At this moment, Tiandu Evil Dominator was facing the attacks of 3 Emperor Masters at the same time, especially Mystery's attack, which was far stronger than an ordinary Emperor Master. I didn't expect that a mere Dao integration stage cultivator would actually possess the strength to shake a supreme sovereign. However, it's still far from enough to shatter my world. All of you die. Between heaven and earth, the evil lord of Tiandu's voice resounded like the heavenly Dao, vast and mighty. Around Su Fang, Netherguard, and Mystery's doppelganger, a world-destroying divine might enveloped the 3 of them. Then, a huge explosion occurred. Tiandu Evil Lord did not hesitate to detonate a part of his world, which was equivalent to harming himself, just to kill Su Fang, Ming Wei, and Netherworld's clone. Boom! Su Fang felt as if the universe was about to be destroyed. The terrifying power wanted to destroy him and the world together. It was a critical moment. A figure appeared in front of Su Fang. It was the clone of the Ji people's first ancestor. It blocked the power of the evil dominator's self-destruction for a moment. The self-destruction of the evil dominator's world was only a small part of it, but it was definitely not something that an overgod could withstand. The clone of the Ji people's first ancestor instantly shattered and turned into nothingness. However, the clone of the Ji people's first ancestor had bought Su Fang a brief moment of respite. The divine power of the yin-yang world gushed out from his body and quickly condensed into a defensive barrier. The heavenly Dao avatar also appeared above his head and condensed into the avatar tree, forming another layer of protective divine power around him. In the end, he fused all the power of the big goblin and experts into his divine body in his natal mode. Together with his physical defense, he condensed the final layer of defense. In a flash, the terrifying power swept over, and Su Fang's avatar tree and the divine power of the world were shattered. Then, the defense of his physical body also collapsed. Su Fang felt as if his entire body was shattered from the inside out. He was like a sandbag that was swept out from the shattered world and returned to the 9 underworld. It's really not that easy to kill a venerable emperor. Su Fang checked the injuries on his body and couldn't help but grit his teeth. Blood continuously flowed out from his 7 orifices. His bones and meridians were almost all shattered. His physical body was currently connected by the Black Lotus blood thread. Otherwise, he would have already turned into a cloud of blood mist or even turned into nothingness under that terrifying destructive power. The world in his body was also violently shaken. Fortunately, with the support of the Jianmu tree, and Su Fang's heaven and earth universe was close to a mature state, it wasn't damaged much. Then, he looked at Ming Wei and Mystery's clone. Although Ming Wei's body was strong, he was too big. In addition, He didn't have a strong defense like Su Fong. At this moment, only his head was left, and his body was shattered into a pile of rubble. Shroud's avatar appeared to be completely unharmed, but his aura had clearly become much weaker. Su Fong reckoned that he could at most display his strength one more time before completely perishing. Su Fong hurriedly used the blue sky blood dome. His blood surged wildly in his body, and at the same time, he fused a blood crystal with his blood. The consumed life force was quickly recovered, and his injuries were also recovering at an astonishing speed. Although he wasn't at his peak state, at least his life wasn't in danger. Evil Dominator Tian Du's world rumbled loudly, and quickly shrunk, and then reformed into his original body. Although he had only self-destructed a small part of his world, it was equivalent to burning his own strength and destiny. He looked pale, like a corpse that had just crawled out of a coffin. His aura was also weakened to less than a third of his previous strength. The divine aura and the high and mighty aura of a supreme overlord expert were all gone. He looked at Su Fong. Disbelief flashed in Evil Dominator Tian Du's eyes. Under the destructive power of this sovereign's self-destructing world, you actually didn't die. You want me, Su Fong, to die? It's not that easy. Since I'm not dead, then it's your turn to die. Su Fong displayed the domineering aura of a supreme overlord of a great world, and flipped his hand to take out the Heaven Supervisor token. Heaven Supervisor token. Evil Dominator Tian Du's eyes changed, and for the first time, there was fear in his eyes. This was the 9 underworlds. His strength was restricted, but the Heaven Supervisor token could control the power of the Heavenly Tao Order, but it wasn't restricted at all. Right now, he was heavily injured, and the situation was worrisome. Seeing Su Fong take out the Heaven Supervisor token, Evil Dominator Tian Du realized that if he didn't escape today, he would probably lose his life here. A resurrected expert that had fallen and revived again, in a sense, was no longer a living being. However, this didn't mean that resurrected experts weren't afraid of death. On the contrary, after dying once, a supreme expert like Evil Dominator Tian Du cherished his life. Su Fong, I have seriously underestimated you, as expected of the supreme genius who possesses the Origin Sacred Mirror. I'll let you go this time, but next, you'll be hunted down by the Evil Dominator and Demon Saint of the Tao Defiant Alliance. Evil Dominator Tian Du said sinisterly, and then was about to escape. Who knew at this moment an aura suddenly descended, and it felt as if the power of the entire 9 underworlds was crushing towards him, and the surrounding space was shackled by the heavy pressure. It turned out to be Mystery's doppelganger, under Su Fong's command. He attacked again and activated the world energy of the 9 underworlds. Although he was just a doppelganger of the Origin Sacred Mirror, he still had the ability to control the 9 underworlds, and even Evil Dominator Tian Du couldn't break through his shackles. At the same time, Su Fong activated the Heaven Supervisor token, and the cold and solemn aura suddenly burst out. In an instant, under the Heaven Supervisor token's aura, a supreme power of the Heavenly Tao Order enveloped Evil Dominator Tian Du, and under this power that even the Heavenly Tao had to follow, Evil Dominator Tian Du couldn't move. Immediately after, it surged out from the void, and quickly condensed into chains, intertwining to form a huge cage, and trapped Evil Dominator Tian Du inside. Evil Dominator Tian Du, you will be the first Emperor Venerable Expert that my Su Fong has suppressed. You should feel honored. Su Fong shouted domineeringly, and immediately activated the prison-suppressing codex, preparing to keep him inside the codex, and in this way, he would have an extremely powerful Emperor Venerable Expert under his command. This lord was resurrected from the dead, but unexpectedly, I didn't die under the suppression of the Heavenly Tao, but in the hands of a mere Tao integration realm cultivator. This lord will not accept this. Even if this lord dies, I will never become your slave. Evil Dominator Tian Du laughed maniacally, and a burning aura burst out from his body, and actually used the power of the Heaven Supervisor token's shackles to shatter an area of 10 feet. His hands formed a strange seal, and the originally weak aura suddenly became incomparably majestic, and instantly reached the peak of the burning aura. Not good, he's going to self-destruct. Su Fong raised his eyebrows, and immediately activated the Heaven Supervisor token, wanting to stop evil Dominator Tiandu, but he was still a step too late. Other than transcendence, if this lord wants to take over everything, who can stop this lord? Evil Dominator Tiandu laughed wantonly, and the majestic life aura in his body suddenly underwent a shocking change, turning into an evil death chi, and then suddenly exploded. As if a part of the world was destroyed, the cage formed by the Heaven Supervisor token's heavenly Tao order was instantly shattered, and the divine power released by Nethery's clone also collapsed. The terrifying impact force twisted and tore the space apart, revealing a huge crack, as if the 9 Netherland was torn apart. Su Fong quickly activated the Heaven Supervisor token, and formed a powerful defense in front of him. Boom boom boom. The defense withstood the impact time after time, and lasted for a joss sticks time, before the entire 9 Netherland gradually calmed down. All the aura of evil Dominator Tiandu was now gone. Evil Dominator Tiandu died just like that? Su Fong was still worried, and carefully sensed the aura of evil Dominator Tiandu in the end. He didn't find any trace of evil Dominator Tiandu's aura, and he was indeed dead. What a pity! An Emperor Venerable expert, and that life and death interdependence forbidden technique. Su Fong felt that it was a pity. This was something that couldn't be helped. An Emperor Venerable expert was already a peak existence in the world, and it was extremely difficult to kill one, let alone capture one alive. Suddenly the black clouds in the sky seemed to be stirred by an invisible hand, forming a huge whirlpool. At the bottom of the whirlpool, as if it was the end of the endless sky, a ray of purple light descended from the depths, landing on Su Fong's body. Su Fong felt a wave of auspicious aura seeping into his body, heaven and earth Tao Palace, and divine aperture ocean. The injuries on his body, as well as the exhaustion just now, seemed to have been cleansed, and instantly recovered wherever the auspicious aura reached. Not only that, under the illumination of the purple light, Su Fong felt the illusory and ethereal fate increasing rapidly, causing the purple Chi Dharma spirit to tremble crazily, and wantonly absorb this heavenly fate.